what's happening, everybody? Hi, welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. I'm Jeff Gerstmann, and it's time to talk about video games here on the world home for video game information about video games and the world around them. And going to the dermatologist. I don't know. I went to the dermatologist this morning. I had a man put his hands all over my body this morning. So forgive me if I'm a little woken up here. He didn't find anything. He looked. I said, I went out a bunch of times this summer and got sunburned all the shit. So he said, you got a little bit of athlete's foot. I said, word? All right, well, I am an athlete, so it does make sense. And then that was that. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the sort of doctor visit that you want to be uneventful. You don't want him to go like, oh, hang on, what's this? We're gonna carve some of this off of your body so that we can get a closer look at it. Yeah, I don't know. I need to get in and see a couple of doctors. I'm just about due, not to start the show with a showstopper here, but I think I am just about due to poop in a box again. Have you done this? Are you of an age where you do this? This is, instead of like doing the like colonoscopy that you're supposed to get, like they instead they will mail they mail an empty box to your home. You fill it up, and then you take it to like UPS and ship it off, and then they check it out, and then they call you like 2 weeks later and go, and then they tell you the results. In my case, last time I did it, they were like, your poop looks good. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, man. I get that a lot. I'm probably due to do that again. Which the exciting thing about that, the best part about pooping in a box, and you don't poop directly in the box. There's a whole process. They have you insert a thing into a toilet, and then you move it from the toilet into anyway. You package it up securely or whatever. But the best part about doing that, is that you wrap it all up, and then you have a box, and you know what's inside the box, and then you're taking it to the UPS, and you've got to like hand this to someone and go, here, put this in the mail. And then you're just like, what am I doing? Handing this person a box full of my doo-doo. But also, I guess now that's becoming a more and more common. I guess that's the other thing is like if you work at like a if you work at FedEx or whoever is doing this, I imagine you get to a point much like what an iPhone looks like when iPhones come out, and you're like, these boxes are all fucking phones. Like I imagine you get to a point where like enough people are bringing poop into the place and handing it that that's the poop box. You go like, yep, another one of these. Ugh, God. Whatever. It's not like it's loose in there. Well, it's not like it's loose and stinking up the place. The idea is that it's supposed to be all sealed up and nice. I imagine that mishaps happen and people don't know what they're doing, and the thing comes open in the mail somewhere, and some poor guy on a truck is like, what the fuck is this? But I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where that's like an omen, if you get 12 poop boxes in a day, you're like, okay, that was a good day. If you get 40, then you're like, I don't know, it's gonna be a rough week. It's already Monday and we got 40 poop boxes in here. I don't know. That's the whole thing. I would much rather just, honestly, as funny as it is to hand it off to an individual person, I would probably much rather just like put it in a bin. Just go like, all right, poop boxes in the bin. I don't have to confront a person with this. Speaking of poop, it's the 20-year anniversary of the Xbox 360. You heard of this? 20 years since Jay Allard graced us with his presence on MTV, or I don't know. I guess since they did their Ground Zero thing, since they went to the desert and released the Xbox 360. God, like that whole that whole launch, is such a blur to me because of just like when it happened and the different beats in it that they did of like, okay, now we're doing the announcement and this MTV thing, and then we're gonna do the Ground Zero launch in the desert, and us getting games in for review and all of that stuff. I remember the day they started taking pre-orders, I was at G4 down in Los Angeles. Well, I mean here now, but down in Los Angeles, doing Attack of the Show. I guess that was, I was down there co-hosting Attack of the Show for a week with Kevin Pereira. And that was the day that they opened. I remember pre-ordering an Xbox 360 from the G4 office and going, well, all right, that's taken care of. That whole thing. Did I meet Morgan Webb? Yeah, believe it or not, I've met Morgan Webb. I know, it's true. That was a lot. I've talked about it before. Co-hosting Attack of the Show was super fun. It was a fun week of me having not a whole lot to do because I was just the co-host, and so they had me on a few bits here and there, and it was it was relatively simple. But yeah, it was fun. Actually, it's funny. I have it right here. I was going through the garage and I found a DVD that when we did shows with G4, they burned them to DVD and would give them to us so that we would have copies. This is episode 5075 of Cinematech, which is the we also at GameSpot about 20 years ago now. About 20 years ago now, around the same year as the Xbox. We wrote a week of shows for Cinematech, and so we wrote an episode about 1998 and whatever else there was. But this one was this episode is the Digital Women's Liberation Foundation episode that Carrie Guskos and Bethany Massamia wrote and appeared on. And I don't know, I have this one. I thought they gave us one for each one of the episodes, but for whatever reason that is the only one I still have. And that was super fun too. Like, we wrote those things, and me and Ryan Davis had to do rewrites for a lot of the episodes because we presented them with the scripts and they were just like, this is all way too complicated for Cinematech, a TV show that normally has 0 humans on it. You are now suddenly asking us to shoot a bunch of stuff and make all of this stuff happen. You need to pare it down. There's too much here. And so Ryan and I sat in a hotel room in LA, completely reworking most of those episodes, the day before we had to shoot them. And basically I was we were sitting in there doing rewrites. We were rewriting the episodes, and also I had a laptop with Phantasy Star Online Blue Burst on it. And so it was going back and forth between rewriting the episodes and me playing more Blue Burst, which I think had just come out or something around the time that we were there. And yeah, that it was a dual purpose laptop, script writing and PSO. The two things, basically, that's what more would you ever want a laptop computer for? At that point, let's talk more about the Xbox 360 launch. Let's take an ad break. We'll come back. We'll talk about how it's like an inhale, I guess. Hey, how many times have you tried to quit smoking or vaping? I mean, 50% of people who vape attempt to quit each year. But you need to equip yourself with the right tools for the job. And, sometimes that tool, needs to be something that you can do with your hands and your mouth, something that, kind of fills the physical end of smoking and vaping. That's where Fume comes in. It's the award-winning flavored air device loved by over 500,000 customers. Fume is twice as effective as most of the solutions that you've tried, and it's backed by lab-tested safety studies, so both doctors and customers agree Fume is the good habit, and it's 1/3 the cost of your bad habit. Fume is cool. It's flavored air, so they have these different kind of flavor pouches. They open up, you get the little piece inside. You put it into your Fume unit, and you just can kind of take a little puff of that, and it's like you get like natural flavors. There's no nicotine, there's no vapor, there's nothing like that. It's just a quick hit of flavor, and it's a nice weighted, like the Fume device it feels good in the hand. You can kind of twist it and it'll kind of click because it has like a dial to adjust airflow, and so it's like it's got this kind of clicky thing going on. It's got a good weight to it. It's got magnets, so there's something for you to do with your hands, which sometimes that sounds silly, right? But sometimes a big part of getting cigarettes or vapes out of your life is finding something that actually replaces all of the things you like about that stuff. And sometimes that could be like, oh, I need something I can take outside on a break. Like, oh, I'm going outside for a break, or at work or whatever. And so Fume can fill that need. If you need something to kind of fidget with in your hands and part of that ritual, replacing that part of that ritual with something like Fume can be perfect. They got a crisp mint flavor among others that's it's got a fantastic feel to it, very refreshing. Check it out. Start your guilt-free journey with the good habit and use code Jeff to get a free gift with purchase and begin your overdue breakup. Just head to tryfume.com/Jeff. That's tryfum.com/Jeff. And use the code Jeff to start the good habit today. I've been thinking a lot about the Xbox 360. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about Xbox lately. Obviously the future of Xbox, the Xbox brand has been in the news in some like crazy way, seemingly every single week for a while now, right? The Xbox 360, I think, in contrast, is like that seemed like a kind of an amazing device. I don't know, like at the time it was. At the time, it seemed cool. At the time, it seemed like they were making a lot of smart decisions, and I think it would only be a few years in, or maybe even looking back on it to a certain extent, that I think people would realize, like, wow, that is one of the best consoles. I would include it in a conversation at the very minimum. It's maybe not the. I would probably not say it is the best console. I would probably not put it ahead of the PlayStation 2 overall or something, but it's probably number 3 in the top 3. If we're talking PS2, SNES, and Xbox 360, I feel like is right there with it. They continued to be very forward looking, right? That was one of the things with the original Xbox that the original Xbox, had a hard drive in it, had an Ethernet port directly on it, and so it felt like a forward looking thing that they never really fully took advantage of. Xbox Live on the original Xbox is a thing, and games did support it, and voice chat, and so a lot of that groundwork got laid there, but it never really felt. I think because they didn't really launch using most of that stuff, like it didn't really feel like it was a key feature of the console. Centralizing services and things that the Xbox 360 did are things that we take for granted now. You could argue that there's a downside to that by having consoles that are designed to be always connected to the internet and all of that. But it enabled so many different things, a centralized profile, achievement points that could be attached to that profile, save games that are all attached to your profile. The systems end of that thing, and for developers, like, hey, here's, player matchmaking and, all of these services that you can just tie into, and you don't necessarily need to go off and build it all yourself because we've already built all this central service as part of Xbox Live so that you don't have to. And And that was like pretty amazing, you know? This was also gaming moving further and further into the HD era, even though the original Xbox 360 didn't launch with a fucking HDMI port on it. Like they had to release a second model, and it let them put out a console and say, this is the Elite, and it's black, and it's got an HDMI port on it, and it's fucking sick. And you're like, yes, I do want this. This is fucking sick. You're right. This is fucking sick. But as I've been thinking more and more about it, and about Microsoft, and about the Xbox brand, the more and more you really start to break it all down, the more and more it really feels like the Xbox 360 was a fluke. That the Xbox 360 was not them permanently learning from their mistakes. It was them at the right place at the right time, getting very lucky through some very dicey situations with the whole red ring of death, like stuff that could have very easily killed that console before it even got out of the gates. Like they had that moment where it all happened, and meanwhile, you know, it's easy to forget, you know, when you talk about it, but like meanwhile, the PlayStation 3, the early days of PlayStation 3 were marked by developers being confused and angry about that device and how to make games for it. It was a console that did not launch with a lot of those centralized services and all of that stuff. And so, you know, using PSN was a very different thing. Developers were frustrated, you know, and so it became very easy to support the Xbox 360, which they used to ride that to a high that they had never had before. And then decided, what if we had a gaming camera? And, you know, like, and redesigned the UI multiple times to, you know, like the Xbox One story. It's a couple of people in chat, Sebmal in the chat is saying it, but like the Xbox One story starts a few years before the Xbox One came out, right? You know, it starts with that Kinect racing game and Kinectimals, and, you know, like the some of the TV features, and, you know, they saw how many people used Netflix on an Xbox, and the Wii was also a pretty popular Netflix device, as I understand it. But you know, they got dollar signs in their eyes on top of the dollar signs that were already there, and said, what if we could make that TV money too? What if we could, you know, and you start to see the roots of what would eventually be the Xbox One near the tail end of the Xbox 360 generation, which is, you know, kind of crazy. But that launch, also the Xbox 360 launch, I felt like, you know, because remember, Microsoft ran screaming away from the original Xbox earlier than you might have expected. I remember it being, you just started hearing like retail rumblings like, hey, by the way, like, go try to find an Xbox in stores right now. And you'd call up the GameStop and be like, do you have an Xbox? And they'd be like, yeah, we got some used ones. But like the original Xbox just slowly, or just not slowly. It just kind of went poof, like out of existence, without them telling anyone, hey, we're end of life on the original Xbox. We're gonna stop shipping these fucking things, and we are getting the fuck out of this business ASAP. And it wasn't like they were getting out of that business and then the Xbox 360 was out the next month. Like there was a good chunk of time there where like first party had started to move over, and just like the sales of the original Xbox hardware had presumably fallen to a point where they said it's pointless for us to even restock the shelves, you know, as fully as we were a year ago. So let's just ride this out. And so they kind of, that whole thing just kind of like fell off a cliff without anyone immediately noticing. Because the original Xbox just didn't do the numbers that, you know, they wanted it to, or you know, it didn't have that room in the marketplace from a third party perspective, and so, you know, it just kind of didn't really seem viable anymore. in stores compared to the PlayStation and, you know, in the GameCube. I would probably take an original Xbox over a GameCube. Can't play Blood Wake on a GameCube. But what are you going to do? And the PlayStation 2, as we've said before, may very well be the greatest console ever launched in the history of devices. So, you know, all of that led to the Xbox 360. And, you know, we talk about like, oh, they went and they met with Epic, and Epic talked to them about the amount of RAM. You know, they changed the amount of RAM in the console at the last minute, and that is what made games possible, because like more games possible because they would have hamstrung that thing otherwise. And, you know, some of the other things that that kind of formed the Xbox 360 story. And it seemed so. I don't think that I like the people that were launching the Xbox 360 seemed like okay guys. They seemed like okay people. Like Jay Allard was simultaneously like an okay dude, at least at that point in time. There would be situations later on where that was maybe not the case. With people that I know anyway, but at the time, you know, you're like, okay, like he seems like a very silly, like this whole like, you know, hoodie with the blazer over it, and like Microsoft very extremely trying to look like they are cool and not Microsoft, but ultimately underneath the blazer, underneath the hoodie, underneath the makeover, like Jay Allard was a Microsoft guy through and through. You know, he was part of the tribe all the way, and they managed to cover it up long enough, and then they eventually brought in Peter Moore. You know, and you know, like Peter Moore got out there more and more. I think Peter Moore has a credibility to him from his days at Sega, obviously, where like that dude just has always come across as extremely legit. And still to this day, I think he is, you know, if we were ranking video game executives in the console space, which is an insane thing to do, and judged on their public appearances and not on the actual work they did, because no one isn't really in a position to judge all of those people. Peter Moore is right up near the top, right up near the top. But all that stuff, you know, you were just coming off of the original Xbox seeming like kind of a failure. I remember having a sort of dickish conversation with a Microsoft PR person where I was telling him about all the cool stuff my Xbox could do because I modded it. I'm like, yeah, man, I watched music videos and all this stuff. I mean, it's not like there's any games to play. Like, you know, like there are no video games worth playing on an Xbox anymore. So, you know, modding it and being able to run Xbox Media Center and do all this cool shit is fucking awesome, dude. It's great. And he was like, wow, you really didn't need to be as harsh. I was like, in retrospect, you're right. Maybe this was kind of an asshole-ish thing to say to you while you were here in our office. But they didn't have any games. There were no games left to play on an Xbox. It was like, you know, like, fuck it. This thing's great for watching movies and running milk drop while I'm listening to music in a different room in the house. Like, you know, it was fucking awesome. But it was very easy to be skeptical of the Xbox 360 for a lot of reasons. One, it felt like it was super rushed to market. Two, their E3 showings like seemed very minimal. Like they didn't always have a ton of things to show. And then at that E3 that year, there was stuff that they just weren't like. And I think the original Xbox kind of suffered from the same thing, where it was like, wait, where are the games? How come you aren't showing off the games? Like if you're launching this thing this year, right? How come there aren't games out here on the floor in like abundance? What's going on? You know, like Perfect Dark Zero ended up being something that they kept very well guarded because they put out the screenshot of Wall Guy. The Wall Guy screenshot, I think, ended up rewriting entire PR plans, if I had to guess, where they went from like, oh shit, people saw that screenshot and now they think our game is garbage. Okay, well now we really can't show it to them until it is not garbage. Is it garbage right now? It's coming together. It's coming together. And you know, and the shipping version of Perfect Dark Zero was better than Wall Guy. You know, it made it look like it was going to look. That said, I don't think especially highly of Perfect Dark Zero. I remember helping Greg Kasavin, I think, reviewed Perfect Dark Zero, and we had all these Xboxes in the office for review purposes, and so like there was a weekend where, okay, we need to test this out online. Everyone needs to bring an Xbox home with a copy of this fucking game, and we need to sit down and all play it. And I remember thinking it was okay, that the multiplayer was all right for like a console shooter, and you know, remember this is, you know, 2005, not 2007. It's a very different time. And Greg really liked Perfect Dark Zero. I don't know, you know, like I didn't, you know, but whatever. That's just how it goes sometimes. And I don't know. It was a weird list of games. Like, what is? I have the launch lineup. I have the physical, like the disc based lineup. For launch. I don't have a list of the Xbox Live Arcade games, but the US launch for the Xbox 360 looks like it is Amped 3, which was at least like goofy. Like Amped 3 is like an okay snowboarding game. As someone who doesn't like snowboarding games, it's probably my favorite snowboarding game, I guess I would say. But it's mostly because of the story and cutscenes and all of the crazy shit that was in it that you know really stood out at the time. Call of Duty 2, which to me always felt kind of out of place on the console. I remember going like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. You should probably play this on PC. I don't know. This seems weird here and doesn't look awesome. Condemned Criminal Origins, which I thought Condemned was pretty awesome. We were all pretty into Condemned. I remember we were all pretty into Rebar Bent as a melee weapon. FIFA 06 Gun, which was cross-gen. Gun had come out on the original Xbox as well. Cameo, Elements of Power, which I remember thinking was like, some of these games were games that, you know, as they showed them in the months leading up to release, you were like, dude, this thing is fucking fucked. Like, all of these games look like they are like mediocre at best. And then I remember actually liking Cameo way more than I thought I was going to. Not that it's like some world-changing event or whatever, but like Cameo was totally all right. You turn into that big ball guy, and there's you got wall guy, you got ball guy, you got everything. Madden 06, NBA 2K6, which, remember, this was like the sweat generation, and so in NBA 2K6, and I believe also in NBA Live 06, they were like, look at the cloth physics and the sweat, and the characters will sweat, and look at this. Oh my god. Need for Speed Most Wanted, which is a great game. There's a hell of a bus station in that game that's incredibly useful. And Razor Callahan. It is simultaneously a flawed game and also one of the best Need for Speed games. So, you know, I'll put it to you this way. Need for Speed Most Wanted, I don't think has aged super well. I think it's a hard game to go back to because of the number of different bullshit events they will put you into in order to make your way through the blacklist. Like making your way to Razor Callahan. I remember doing it when I was reviewing that game, and the number of just like, okay, I got to do another knockout race. Oh, I got to do another one of these. I got to do another one of these. Fuck. There was a lot more game, like tastes today are such that like that game feels very bloated. Very, very bloated. That was also a cross-gen game. That was a game that also came out on PlayStation 2. And NHL 2K6, Perfect Dark Zero, which we talked about, but like Perfect Dark Zero was just a weird thing. Perfect Dark is a weird thing, and then the idea of there being a new one coming out, not on a Nintendo machine because Rare had been sold, like the whole thing just seemed strange out of the gate. And a lot of the screenshots, not just the wall guy screenshot, but like the pictures of Joanna Dark, and just there was a lot of stuff there that you just look at and go like, I don't have a good handle on what the fuck I'm looking at here. Like I don't know what I'm not sure what this is. And then getting your hands on it and being like, it didn't feel like, hey, this is the follow-up to the series, the quote unquote series that started with GoldenEye. Like if Perfect Dark is the spiritual successor to GoldenEye, I don't think Perfect Dark Zero necessarily feels like it's one of those games. It feels like they're trying to approximate some of that, but also trying to, like, oh, we got dual analog sticks now, and what do we do with that? It's not an N64 anymore. Finally, Jesus Christ, put that thing in the ground. Put the dirt on it, bury it deep. Put a fucking sign up that says we don't honor this. There's nothing here worth seeing. This is not a place of honor. The N64 is buried here. Perfect Dark is a game I find myself thinking like, man, I should go back and play some Perfect Dark because I remember it just being so fucking weird. And the campaign specifically, like, because if you think about the GoldenEye campaign and Perfect Dark as well, like it had a lot of objectives, like that was kind of the cool thing about those shooters for their time, is like you went and did stuff. It wasn't just find the keys and find the exit and shoot a bunch of guys along the way. It was like, pull out your watch laser and then do this and run up and look. Now there's a cutscene of you jumping off this bridge, and like all this other. Alec Trevelyan is here. I've said it before. Not to get away from what we're talking about here. I am physically, mentally, whatever you want to call it, I am incapable. And it's good branding on his part, maybe. I don't know. I cannot think about the film GoldenEye without thinking of Botchamania. Without thinking of Matthew and Botchamania. Like whatever synapses, whatever neural, like there's just like that is completely locked in my head now. They're the same thing as far as I'm concerned. You either know what that means or you don't, and it's not worth explaining to you if you don't. Just live your life. You're better off. Anyway, Perfect Dark Zero is nonsense. I remember that game being just absolute nonsense, like multiplayer and single player, like it just seeming so weird, and there really not being anything like it before or since. And that's the sort of stuff that makes me want to go take another look at it, because it's been a very long time. You know what? It has not been as long as that, but I, because it was on Rare Replay, wasn't it? At some point, it became backwards compatible or whatever, and I went back and played it, and was like, what the fuck is this? Anyway, also on the list, Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, which just got a big fan patch. Like there's a, what is it? I'm trying to look for what the name of this is. Today marks a special milestone, 20 years since the release of Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, and we're celebrating with a brand new release of the widescreen fix. Okay, I'm reading. This is from Fusion Fix 10 on Twitter, who posted a changelog. Compatible with Gamers Edition and Signature Edition. Unlocked all resolutions, fixed aspect ratio, fixed HUD, fixed field of view, fixed FMVs, implemented a frame rate limiter. So yeah, there's a fan patch. If you want to play Peter Jackson's King Kong the official game of the movie, there's a fan patch that I guess will make that run decently on modern machines. I remember thinking that game was fucking garbage. But like interesting in a like, is this the future of cinematic games? Like, you know, like there was a conversation to be had around it in terms of like, wow, this big character, big monkey do thing, no UI. That's so wild. I got all 1,000 points because they were all very easy to get. But that game was not good. Project Gotham Racing 3, Quake 4, which Quake 4, the special edition, and by that I probably mean every edition, but they billed it as something that was only going to come with the first run of the game or whatever. But Quake 4 came with a copy of Quake 2. And so you could play Quake 2 on an Xbox 360 and with a controller, and it just felt like a sin against fucking all, like it just felt like we were going to be struck down by lightning for playing Quake 2 that way. but you could do it. Quake 4. The Quake 4 multiplayer is not that different from Quake 3. And ultimately, that's kind of the problem. It's like, hey, here's just kind of the Quake 3 multiplayer with some different weapons and way worse maps. And you're like, great. I don't want to do this because I've spent the last several years playing Quake 3 and never stopped. So, like, this is not as good as that. But, okay. And then the campaign was the big thrust for Quake 4. And they ruined the twist in the marketing, which was always sort of weird. Like the big twist in Quake 4 is that you're a dude and then you get captured and you get put into the Strogg facility and given like robot legs or whatever the fuck. And so like halfway through the campaign, you gain like a handful of abilities because you've been Stroggified. And I remember thinking that game was okay. I don't know. I think people shit on it a lot now, and I will shit on it, let's say 10% less than everyone else, because as someone who did play that game when it first came out, I was like, yeah, okay. It's not great. Like, it's the worst Quake game by a mile, by a million miles, you know? When you think about the impacts that Quake 1, Quake 2, and Quake 3 had upon release, Quake 4 being like we had another team make the campaign, and then the multiplayer is just kind of more Quake 3, but bad now. Like Quake 4 feels, and that was, that was Activision's first Quake game, if I remember right. I mean, because id just published Quake 3 themselves, and then, anyway. Activision ruined Quake 3. They ruined Quake. Ridge Racer 6, which was, Ridge Racer 6 felt treasonous. Ridge Racer 6 felt like, man, I can't believe that Ridge Racer is showing up on not a PlayStation. That's so weird. And then Ridge Racer 7 was just Ridge Racer 6 all over again, but on PlayStation. You're like, okay. Weird. Ridge Racer 6 is okay. It's a game that in some ways it's like one of the last, they didn't, it's one of the last all original Ridge Racer games, right? Because 7 was just kind of 6 again. And then we started doing all these handheld games that were just various remixes and re-releases of the same tracks from previous games in the franchise. And so Ridge Racer 6 is kind of, well, unless you count Ridge Racer Unbound, which let's not, but yeah. Tiger Woods PGA Tour 06 and Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. That's the launch lineup for the US. In Japan, they got Tetris the Grandmaster Ace and Every Party, which was a, board game, mini game collection. I bought a copy of Every Party when I bought my Japanese Xbox 360 in the depths of absolute sickness with achievements and wanting to get achievements that no one else had. Once I realized that you could put your profile onto a Japanese Xbox 360 and load games and play games on your profile, I was like, well, we need to buy Japanese Xbox 360s. And I did so. It was me. I mean, Carrie Guskos also had the sickness when it comes to the achievements there for a brief period of time before I just fucking blew her fucking doors off, man. I had so many more points than her. It was just like, what? Why even bother? Anyway, I think her and I both bought Japanese Xbox 360s. And I bought a handful of games that were not good. and I played through multiple versions of the same game in some cases, because there were a couple of cases where Japanese games were not on the same game ID as the US version, so you could play them twice, and there was a lot of really disgusting stuff you could do there. But anyway, Every Party was the game that, you know, was interesting, because you're like, man, why isn't this launching in the US? Like, it doesn't seem like that far gone as a concept that it couldn't. Like, why aren't they putting Every Party out here? And then finally importing a Japanese 360 and getting a copy of Every Party and sitting down to play it and going like, oh, okay, yeah, it's not very good. It's not very good. Turns out it's not a great game. But there was Xbox Live as well, you know, like that's the Xbox Live Arcade was another batch of releases. I don't have that list of games in front of me, but that was a really weird list of games, and the restrictions that developers had to make XBLA games at the time was really, really strict and really, really over the top. Games had to be 50 megabytes. They could not be any larger than that, because they wanted the games to fit on the 64 meg memory card and not just the hard drive. Because remember, they were selling two versions of the Xbox 360, and one of them did not come with a hard drive, which was like crazy. Because the whole time they had been talking about, hey, yes, of course, much like the previous machine, we have a hard drive built right in. And so you'll be able to store these games and download this and download that. And then for them to go like, or you could get the core version of the system that doesn't have a hard drive. And you're like, what? What the fuck? Why would anyone do this? You know, Geometry Wars was an amazing video game. It was the best Xbox 360 launch game by a fair margin. You know, I think people forget its roots as like like the first Geometry Wars is just a weird mini game contained within like Project Gotham Racing 2 or something, right? On the original Xbox. And so when Geometry Wars Retro Evolved came along, it was fantastic. But that was not the only dual joystick shooter on XBLA at launch, which was, as a fan of dual joystick shooters who had not found a great new one in a very long time, like suddenly it was like, here's a console launching with not just Geometry Wars, which really Geometry Wars was all you needed, but also Robotron, I believe, was a launch game, like a good emulated version of Robotron, and Crystal Quest, which was a remake of an old, I think it was a game, I think it was originally on the Mac. And that was a dual joystick shooter as well that I played a lot of and never got all the achievements in Crystal Quest because it was fucking hard. You know, there was like hardwood. I still have this installed on my current, on my Xbox Series X. I still have hardwood backgammon or hardwood hearts. Like there were like some, you know, kind of board and card games that they put out. Yeah, there was Mutant Storm Reloaded, which was another dual joystick shooter. But I learned how to play backgammon because I wanted to get achievements in hardwood backgammon for the Xbox 360. That was the thing that finally got me to learn how to play backgammon for at least a few months there. And then I never played it again. So, you know, what could have been a promising pro career was unfortunately dashed. You know, it's a bummer. I could have been somebody, but alas. That stuff was all really neat. I don't know. Like it didn't always feel like there was one big game for the Xbox 360. It didn't really feel like there was like, here's the other than Geometry Wars, really. But like the launch, the original launch lineup of physical games felt very strange, and stuff trickled in kind of late for review, and that felt a little strange. Like it just felt like it was taught like as a launch. When it came to covering that launch, a lot of that stuff felt very tossed together. And the system came with Hexic HD installed, which was a hell of a puzzle. Like, at least the fancy version of the Xbox 360 had a copy of Hexic HD as kind of a pack-in game of sorts, and that's a good little puzzle game. It was fun. But yeah, there didn't really seem like there was any one big launch game. We would eventually get the Xbox Live Vision camera, and then Uno would kind of come out alongside that, and that would be kind of a new fun twist on all of that stuff when that finally came out. And was that even in the first year, or was that like year 2? I don't know. I'd have to go look at dates and stuff, but it was it felt like a promising system that the launch lineup wasn't there for. You're just like, I don't know, man. Like, this stuff seems really neat, but there's something weird about it also. And it was part of that was because Full Auto was such a terrible game. Full Auto I guess wasn't launched, was it? It was not on that list that I just read off. Okay, so that was Valentine's Day 06. So Full Auto didn't come out initially. But which is funny because Full Auto is the first game of that generation that I saw running in a playable form. Sega was showing it off somewhere at some event, and I remember seeing it. It was one of those things where it's like, yeah, here's Full Auto. It's running on a next generation console. Wink, wink. But we're not going to tell you which one or what it is, or like all of this other stuff. And you're like, well, there's kind of only one coming out real soon, so I'm just going to assume that it's the Xbox, because it kind of has to be, right? I mean, you're not showing us a PlayStation 3 game because that's not out for another, it's sort of a silly dog and pony show based on, like when consoles are new, developers are hardware manufacturers are very particular about how games get announced and how games get confirmed for a device, and they want you to go through concept approval through them before they clear you to announce your game, and so there was always a lot of weird hijinks around that stuff where it's like, oh, we can't tell you what system it's for, but it's coming, it's going to be out, and you play it and you're like, well, clearly this is not a PlayStation 2 game. All right, whatever, we'll see. But yeah, it was an amazing device, like it really, it was the right system for the right time. Western development kind of crawled into the spotlight over those few years there. PC developers, I think, suddenly had a console to develop for, I think, in a lot of ways, where, some of those games didn't always translate well to PlayStation 2, and, some of their skill sets didn't immediately translate over into developing games on Sony or Nintendo's machines. I think PC developers, because of its kind of, the what was under the hood inside an Xbox 360, I think PC developers like Epic, to name one, but like they found an in, and they took advantage of it, and I think they changed the course of games and West and tastes in games here in the West. I think we started seeing some of those PC franchises move over to console and become more popular. Obviously, like Halo did big things. Halo 2 did wonders for that kind of effort on the original Xbox. But in the years that followed, you would just see a lot of those PC developers kind of move into the console space and move on to Xbox 360. That led to kind of a glut of a lot of really fucking shitty shooters. to be totally honest with you. That was not all like roses and sunshine. Like, with that came a different brand of shovelware. and sometimes that stuff was really exciting because it was a different style of shovelware than you were used to, or it was like done a little better. It's not entirely brand new to that generation, right? Like Soldier of Fortune came out on the Dreamcast, right? Which is ridiculous. But like, yeah, like Oblivion became, obviously Morrowind existed on the original Xbox and people really liked it there, but that was not a game for normal people. That was a game for complete fucking sickos, no matter what platform you played it on. Oblivion was where they sanded off enough of the rough edges, and it was just performant enough on the Xbox 360 to change video games. And it was crazy. And it gave a home to the Mass Effect franchise and just like all the stuff that happened over the course of that generation. And then the Xbox One came out and they kind of pissed it all away. I don't know. Like it's that's kind of again, because of a lot of the news of what Xbox is becoming and the how important hardware is or isn't or whatever in whatever the future of Xbox may be. It's weird to think about the Xbox 360 as a, I guess I think about it now as it's kind of an anomaly in the history of the Xbox brand, because before that you have the Xbox, which put them on the map. It established them as taking gaming seriously in a way that a lot of companies that came before them did not. The original Xbox, if nothing else, proved to the public, the media, whoever, you want to say, that they were not 3DO, that they were not Philips with the CDI, that they were not, that they seemed to understand a certain thing about what it meant to make a video game console, which a lot of the, kind of third machine makers over the years didn't understand. And they had no idea how to compete in this space. And so they came in with overpriced, fucking underpowered trash. And so bare minimum, you have to give Microsoft some amount of credit for like getting that part right. And that afforded them the ability to get a second shot at it. If the original Xbox just kind of did okay and then fell off, it at least gave them a taste for it that allowed them to push things forward with the Xbox 360. But ultimately, I think when I think back on it now, when I look at the last 20 years, I guess that was just kind of fleeting, With Sony, at least you have these moments of like, oh, they fucked it up and they got it back, right? With Sony, you have these moments of like, oh, the PlayStation 3, like at a moment in time, it was overpriced. It was a little bit more difficult to develop for than its competition. Like, there were just systems in place that, the Xbox had that they didn't. And so the PlayStation 3 was Sony at its most, I don't know, pompous. Like, they thought that they could put anything out and people would just line up to develop for them. And Microsoft had the right machine at the right time, meaning like a year earlier, to derail that for them. And that caused Sony to sit down and go, oh shit, okay, all right, fuck. And then they had the PlayStation 4. And the PlayStation 4, for as much as it was an underpowered CPU, there are plenty of things to knock about the PS4, it made them developer centric again. It made PlayStation realize, like, we need to work better with our partners. We can't just give them this thing and say, like, we think this CPU could also run on refrigerators. And all of these chips can work together to make your games better. Anyway, go out there and make something cool. And developers are like, what the fuck is this? PlayStation 4 felt like they sat down and went like, okay, we can't fucking do that again. And so, Mark Cerny and the rest of the crew that engineered that thing sat down and said, let's make a system that's easy to make games for, because that's what developers want. We want to make games that we want to make a console that people can make games on, not just us. So let's do that. And they did that. And people were like, fucking awesome, great. They also had all of the systems level stuff that they needed to have based on the previous generation. Came up with a few new ideas around built-in streaming and like a couple of ideas along the way there. And that was that. Meanwhile, the shoe was on the other foot. Microsoft stumbled as hard as they could possibly stumble with the Xbox One. And then the Xbox Series X, I would call something of a toss-up, where Sony was able to continue riding its momentum, and Microsoft had a machine that, quality-wise was just about right there. And it becomes like a different industry at somewhere at that point, right? It's like, okay, like, we're buying studios, we're not shipping games, we're canceling games, we're doing, there's a lot of like it's been a messy generation, right? And so I can't help but think about it now and go like, wow, I guess maybe the Xbox 360 was just a moment in time. And Microsoft had the right idea, and they were able to have a pure version of that, a relatively pure version of that idea, make it to market at the same time that their competition was making mistakes. And those things combined for them to have what is looking more and more like a singular moment for them. And now they're going to make PCs that play video games, which it's cool. I have a PC that plays video games. It's awesome. You should check it out. But like it's funny. It's funny. It's like, was that their peak? And even when all is said and done, if you want to play it competitively, when you look at the worldwide numbers, I think PS3 outsold the 360 by some number by the time all was said and done. So, even then, it comes with a couple of caveats. It's interesting, to look back on it all now. And where it all goes from here. I don't know. It's a very strange thing. We always reviewed games based on like, what's the system that people are asking us the most about, and what seems to be selling more, and whatever else, right? Like there's a certain aspect of it of like, if you're going to review one version of a game, and if you're going to promote, because we had different game pages for different systems at the time. And so you could link to the Xbox 360 version of a game, or you could link to the PS3 version of the game or whatever. And people would get all like conspiratorial about why you do one versus the other or whatever. But like ultimately it just came down to like, the Xbox 360 was, especially in the US, and by the time all was said and done, only in the US, but like at the time, it was the dominant platform. It was the platform that people seemed to be developing games for. It was the platform that that people wanted to know the most about, traffic wise, like all the other stuff. And so it was like, okay, well, if people want to know about the Xbox versions of these games, then that's what we're going to link to. But like the minute the PS4 came out and the Xbox One, like the minute those situations changed, like people always accuse, I think, the games media of having like certain, biases or whatever based on weird shit like that. But like the minute the PS4 came out, it was like, okay, that's it. Like the minute the PS4 came out, and it was like it was pretty clear what was happening and where the games were, and which did not take long in this case. Like the Xbox One immediately made it known that it was going to get fucking drummed out of the marketplace. That was it for me in achievement points. It was just like, all right, well, whatever. Like I'm getting trophies now, I guess. Like it was, there was no, like there's no loyalty. Like I don't give, who gives a shit? Like we're there to do a job, and the job is to try to help the most people or whatever, and so, immediately it became, and of course, like all the people, like it was just a different group of people who were mad about it, like, you guys just are biased against the Xbox and this is that, or it was like, no, no one I know in this line of work ever fucking cared about any of that shit. Like, oh man, like even the clear differences in a lot of cases, it was just like even that stuff was like, oh, it's really interesting that the Xbox One versions of these games are not running at as high a resolution as their PlayStation counterparts, but also the only people who care about that are lunatics. You know, like it was very easy to like, you could look at it and go like, this is maybe in some games I'm seeing a minor difference and maybe that matters and maybe it doesn't. It probably doesn't matter. It probably doesn't matter. But also who cares? You know, it's like, yeah, I don't know. It was a great story for the digital foundries of the world. All the resolution stuff with the Xbox gave people a lot of counting to do. Let's take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk about more recent video games like Timesplitters. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Fabletics. When you live in activewear, you can never have enough, but getting a good piece of it is tough. Sometimes it costs a fortune. Sometimes you pay all that money and get something that's just garbage. Fabletics will send you pieces that are nice and premium without being $1 trillion. If you want to become a Fabletics VIP, it's simple. You get 80% off everything when you sign up. And after that, the membership's about $70 a month unless you skip that month's shipment. So that monthly fee gives you like exclusive membership benefits, including a credit that you can use towards a full outfit or bundle up to $100. On the first of every month, you get an email, and you just decide if you want to purchase a member credit or if you want to skip the month. And the member credit is something you can use for other people in your family if, you know, you're kind of looking to, you know, kind of spread the stuff around. This is good stuff that, you know, like would be way more expensive in a lot of other situations. I got a couple of really nice sturdy t-shirts that still feel light and breathable. You know, something you can move in if that's what you're up to, if that's what you're doing, or something you can just lounge around in. And this stuff is actually very comfortable on top of that. It's not just like, hey, this is only for you're going to get out here and you're going to run and you're going to do this. Like, this is just nice feeling, well-made, comfy clothes. For whatever you're doing. Fabletics has built a community of over 2 million VIP members and more than 100 retail stores. So, you know, when you join up, it's something that people already love and something that people already rely on. They don't just do good deals, they're also eco-friendly. Half of their fabrics are made from recycled materials, and the company's been carbon neutral since 2021. Nice. The shirts have been really great. You know, they feel good on the body. I can be pretty particular about shirt quality, for sure. You know, sometimes they're a little too stiff, sometimes they're a little too thick, sometimes they're way too thin, sometimes they're not long enough. Being kind of tall, that can be tricky. You know, finding t-shirts that are long enough for your long body. Fabletics has your back on all that stuff, and your front, Treat yourself to gear that looks good, feels good, and doesn't break the bank with Fabletics. Go to fabletics.com/Jeff. Sign up as a VIP and get 80% off everything. That's fabletics.com/Jeff to sign up as a VIP and get 80% off everything. That's fabletics.com/Jeff. Well, video games. Timesplitters came out. Timesplitters Rewind, to be specific. This is a fan project that has been... There's an interesting road to this thing's release involving multiple developers kind of leaving the project and coming out, and this, you know, like there's it's been a long story of that they have documented quite a bit on their website. I saw this on Kotaku last night. But Timesplitters Rewind is it's a fan project that is kind of meant to remake a lot of the assets and a lot of the things from the 3 games in the Timesplitters franchise. I ended up firing it up last night a little bit. It's Unreal Engine based, and it's got mouse and keyboard as well as controller support. It has a server browser built in so you can find other people running games. and you can play all the single player challenges and stuff like that as well. And it's, I don't know, for a franchise that seems like it's never going to happen again because of, just they tried it, didn't happen. They got embraced at some point, didn't they? Or Crytek bought them, and all that other stuff. It's hard to imagine Timesplitters kind of coming back in a real way. And this is a weird, time. If you don't remember, Timesplitters is actually kind of, we were talking about Perfect Dark Zero earlier. The Timesplitters franchise is kind of the actual spiritual follow-up to GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. It's kind of where some of those folks went and made a game that is ridiculous. They sat down and just made like the box of modes shooter game in a lot of ways, where they're just like, I don't know, in this one there's a monkey, and this one you're doing this, and this one you're doing this, and they made it over the course of those games. They tried to tell some kind of story, and they tried to have some kind of little thing, over the course of it, but it was really always designed to be a really crazy multiplayer thing. And they tried to have a quadrillion modes in it. And this seems to have a good number of modes and a good number of like playable characters and all of that in it. And so if you're kind of looking for that, I don't I'm not gonna. I played it with a controller, and it's not like a 1-to-1 GoldenEye thing in terms of how the aiming feels and whatever, but like it has the spirit of that. And so you can go download. That's like 13 gigs for PC, and it ran quite well. So I would say if you're interested in a crazy first-person shooter that is completely free, go grab it and give it a look. It seems kind of fun, and I'll probably be spending a little bit more time with it. Kirby Air Riders also came out last week. I had a weird road into this game because I installed it on the Switch 2. And then my daughter found it. She had been playing Super Mario Jamboree on it and hating it, which has done me some good to be able to, like, because she'll say, like, I lost again, and then turning her, it's because the game is bad. It's because the game is terrible, not you. You're not terrible. The game is. And so she saw Kirby Air Riders on there and started playing it. And then my first exposure to it was her getting stuck in it and handing it to me over and over again as she would get, stuck in some of the challenges. And so I went into it without having played through the tutorial, and my first reaction to it is, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is going on? Seriously, what the fuck is this game? The game is fucking nonsense, man. Like I don't know. Like it's kind of it's cool that they are making a weird. Like, it would be silly if it was just a traditional kart racer, right? Like if it just, because Mario Kart just came out. Like if it just played like that or whatever, like what would even be the point, right? But it is a game where you kind of automatically go, and it's the sequel to a GameCube game that apparently I reviewed, and the only thing I remember about it is like, wow, this is a one-button game this is a dumb fucking video game. That is all I remember of the original Kirby. Air Ride, right? Is like not liking it very much. And so kind of coming into this game and being like, well, I want to see some of this. And I watched Seb Mall stream some of it. And so I got a feel for like, okay, here's what it's kind of supposed to look like when you're playing it well, I suppose. And then, having my daughter hand it to me and just being like, this is fucking bananas. So it's like you wiggle the stick back and forth to attack, and you're like, basically every time she handed it to me, it was a different event. And so on some of them, it's like, here's a big arena and there's a big boss in the middle of it and you got to beat him. Or here's a big giant wheel and it's just driving in a circle around the outside edge of the map and you got to cut it off and fight it. And you're like, okay, how do I fight stuff? I get near it and I wiggle the joystick and then I hit it and then I pick up an item. Like, it's very frantic in a way that's kind of cool. Like, there's a lot, it feels like there's a lot going on for a game that, is about you kind of holding down a button and turning and letting off. kind of boost or whatever it is. Like it at least has the visual display of like, there's a billion things happening at once and I'm overwhelmed. And that's kind of neat. But I have found it extremely hard to parse or like, I don't know, like I feel like sometimes like she'll hand it to me and I'm like, I don't know how to even catch up to this fucking guy. Like, how am I even supposed to go? It's like these are all straightaways. So how do I pick up speed? It's automatically driving practically. So what the fuck am I even doing? And so I spent some more time with it and tried to kind of learn it a little bit more. And as I spent more time with it, I found myself liking it less and less. Like figuring out like what the game is asking of you and what it wants you to do, and just being like, I don't want to fucking do this. This is fucking like, what the fuck is this? There are levels in there where you are diving out of the sky, and there are a bunch of rings where you earn points before falling through the rings, and so you're forced to engage with kind of the flight mechanics a little bit, along with to kind of make your way around this small area, but also you're just kind of falling, and so you kind of need to guide yourself around. I found that to feel terrible. I found a lot of the movement and just like the like, okay, I need to get up on a guy and attack, or did I pick up an item and now I have a copy ability, and now how do I use that? What am I doing? Wait, hang on, what is going on here? Like, there's some of that stuff just kind of felt all over the place. I appreciate that every time she handed it to me, it was a different thing. Like, that was kind of cool. It was like every time she gave me the switch, it was like, what is that? Okay, what am I supposed to do here? I need to beat this guy in a race. Okay, that I can do. Okay, I can boost around these corners like I'm drifting, and okay, I get it. Sometimes I'm fighting a giant boss, and it's like, okay, I guess I just get near this thing and then waggle the joystick back and forth until it's fucking dead. And like the turning radius is such that like just even lining up shots on the boss doesn't feel good. And so you're kind of like getting out and boosting to turn around and letting off the button at the right time to kind of get back in the right direction. But, you held it down a little bit too long and now you missed. And so you got to do this. And so there's just like a weird back and forth you're doing if you're not nailing every single shot on it. That's just like, I have found it, again, like that was maybe a bad way to onboard to the game, right? Was to just be handed it in like 5 different events. But then I kind of went back and did try to learn a little bit more of it and kind of figure out like, okay, what does it actually want me to do here? And as I was discovering more and more of that, I was like, I don't like this at all. I don't like any part of this, man. Like, what the fuck? And so I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at with Kirby Air Riders. Unfortunately, I'm going to be forced to play quite a bit more of it because my daughter at least is continuing to play it. Which means every time she loses, she's going to hand it to me and go, win this. And I'm like, all right, figure out what the hell is going on here. But I don't think that the game is very good. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. Which is apparently how I felt about the original game. When you go back and read that review, which again, all I remember about it now is that, I remember thinking that game was dumb. And sticking with that, because having played some of this game now, like, this game's dumb. This is a dumb video game. Sektori also came out. That's on Steam. Sektori is a dual joystick shooter that is of a type. It has a somewhat similar look to like a Geometry Wars. As you are beating enemies, they are dropping what look like little geoms or whatever that you're meant to collect. Mechanically and progression wise, it is a fair bit different. And I really want to like this game, and I think I am unable to play it in its current state. There's former Housemarque developer responsible for this. So it has like, a grand tradition backing it up and all of that. But also, I think what is happening, I lost enough times in a row to the same, like basically I was exploding and I can't figure out why. I was like, oh, okay. And when you die, it actually shows you the moment of you dying. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm watching this replay over and over again and going like, I still don't know what happened here. Like, I didn't hit an enemy. I didn't touch an enemy. Like, nothing. And as near as I can tell, the shape of the arena will change over time. Like, certain areas will be cut off and new areas will kind of open up. And so it'll go from a diamond shape to more of an oval to a square to this to 3 different triangles with warp points between them. And so over the course of a Sektori run, at least in the first mode, it will change shape as it goes. And I think, but I can't know for sure because that's how my eyes are, I think the ground is like glowing red to indicate, hey, you're not going to be able to be here for much longer. And so I think what is happening is like the ground is turning red and I am exploding. But being colorblind, I can't see that. And the game has an accessibility menu where it does have some color things you can set, but not for that. So I don't know what the fuck is going on in Sektori. It seems like a neat game. The music is really good. It's got a good screen shake and pulsating thing going on with the music. But like, I am incapable of playing it in its current form, and it's a real bummer. So more to say. Maybe that will change at some point. I have no idea. Again, it's just like watching the replay is just like, okay, I can see that the ground is pulsating and I'm dying, but the ground is kind of always pulsating because the whole game is pulsating. And so, yeah, like I said, it's been a bunch of deaths where I have no idea what happened or why, but I think that is probably what's happening. And I think color blindness is making it basically indecipherable. So go check out Sektori. People seem to really like it. I am fucking completely incapable of playing it, and that's very frustrating. So maybe I'll check it out at some point if that is ever corrected. But fuck, man. It's really... They do some things. So it has like a Gradius style power-up system where you are collecting power-ups in the arena that then moves your current selectable power-up up a line. And so you push the button to lock in which one you want, and then that will reset it back to the bottom, and you go collect 4 more and you can get a shield, or 5 more and you can get missiles, and you know, and so it's using the Gradius style of power up selection. And I think that's kind of a cool idea for a game like this. There are a few other collectibles in there as well that I have no idea what they do because I cannot live long enough to get any of them. There's also like an idea around equipping decks before you go into a run. But all of these systems are things that open up after you finish the first level, and I can't finish the first level. So I cannot speak to how any of that works or if any of that works. But it seems like a game that would be neat, I guess, is maybe the way to put that. And that is Sektori. It's on Steam. Let's take another break. We'll get into the news after this. After this. Hey, buddy. Hey. Did you know that there's an online cannabis company that ships federally legal THC right to your door? And they found a way to combine THC with carefully selected functional ingredients to target nearly every mood and health concern you can think of? Well, there is. It's Mood. Mood.com's incredible line of functional gummies are available to you legally, and you can get 20% off your first order at mood.com with the promo code Jeff. Now, if you just want to if you're just looking to get high, if you were just looking to twist one and blaze, there's a zillion ways to do that. You don't even have to twist one. You don't even have to blaze. Mood has functional gummies that are optimized to kick in as little as 15 minutes and get you in the mood that you're looking for. Whether that is mind magic gummies, which they target for deep work and creativity, PMS support to ease cramps and balance mood swings, or their sexual euphoria gummies to help you feel ready for action and turn every touch into a full body experience. Yeah, I know. Hey, look, if you just want gummies that'll just get you high, like, I don't know, man, the gas station, go wherever, right? Mood has functional gummies, combining premium, federally legal THC with targeted botanicals to help you get into the perfect mood, usually in as little as 15 minutes. It's shipped discreetly to your door. No dispensary. You don't have to go wait in the line at the dispensary and deal with, like, man, there sure are a lot of large men with what appear to be guns standing around inside this dispensary for security. Why do you need security? What the heck is going on in here? No. Get it shipped right to your door. On top of that, every mood product is backed by a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. And as I mentioned, you can get 20% off your first order with that code, Jeff. So head to mood.com, find the functional gummy that matches exactly what you're looking for, and let Mood help you discover your perfect mood. And don't forget to use the promo code Jeff when you check out to save 20% on your first order. In the news this week, Digital Foundry has an article. This has been going around for a little bit as people were trying to suspect that something was going on with Windows 11. And it seems to be pretty well confirmed now that a security patch for Windows 11 that was issued in October destroyed gaming performance in a couple of instances. Assassin's Creed Shadows is the game that people seem to keep pointing to as a problem game, and Digital Foundry has noticed in some cases that like half the frame rate of that game is shaved off because of this update. NVIDIA themselves put out a hotfix driver, meaning it is not something that automatically downloads in your NVIDIA app or whatever. You need to go seek it out if you want it. They put out a hotfix driver that specifically is meant to at least partially address whatever this issue is. And I installed that because I was having trouble. I've been messing around with DLSS ray reconstruction, which is when they can use that to kind of basically save some cycles on ray tracing type stuff. Call of Duty has it, and I had all that stuff turned on because I was curious about what does that even do? Like what is like what is ray tracing going to even do in this situation? And it was just, the image quality went to shit. It was extremely noisy. It was like there was like white snow. Like it was suddenly like the TV was not tuned to the right channel or something, and the whole image just got kind of snowy. And I was like, well, what the hell is going on here? And then I ran Doom: The Dark Ages, which has full path tracing now, and also uses ray reconstruction. And with all that stuff turned on, it looked like garbage. Same deal, just like speckly white specks all over the image, and just like everything just looked like an absolute mess. The hotfix drivers fixed that in Call of Duty completely. It did not fix the problem completely in Doom. And so I don't think this is necessarily related to that October update. That might be a separate thing on top of this that I just happened to stumble into around the same time. But yeah, performance in some games has been impacted by this security update, and that's not great. I don't know, man. Like, again, we talk about Microsoft and we talk about their move to Windows instead of dedicated console hardware, and what's going to be the impact of all of that. And what's what is the very nature of that? And it doesn't seem great to be in a situation where you're issuing OS level updates that are potentially impacting games. and you hope that that doesn't become a trend, because this is the sort of stuff that if Microsoft is going to take this stuff seriously, they are going to have to be better about all of their kind of gaming performance stuff, because you'll have more and more people relying on it. They won't have a steady console to fall back on with set specs. It'll, this like stuff's going to kind of be all over the place. This update is still in the wild. These hotfix drivers don't necessarily feel like they're fixing the entirety of the problem. But yeah, Digital Foundry is noting both Assassin's Creed Shadows as well as Counter-Strike 2. I'll say that I was having some weird stuff with frame rate in Call of Duty as well, in my time with that like shouldn't have been a case, and then the settings I had to turn down to get that frame rate back felt weird as well, and so I don't know if that's related to this issue or not. It's always hard to kind of know without installing and uninstalling and reinstalling a bunch of security updates and stuff that I'll leave to the Digital Foundries of the world. That's some fun they can have. But that is some stuff that I noticed with Call of Duty as well. So yeah, that's not a great happening. Also on the PC front, Valve is, when the Steam machine was announced, Valve had kind of said that they were hoping to keep the system affordable, and affordability was a concept that they brought up multiple times around both the Steam frame and the Steam machine. They've kind of clarified that a little bit. This is on videogameschronicle.com, but comes from a couple of different podcasts as Valve sort of made the rounds. Linus Tech Tips. Linus Tech, okay, not Linux Tech. Okay, yeah, all right. And basically the additional bit of information that they're giving is that it is priced like a PC rather than a console. And so that has led to some real like the sky is falling type shit as people have kind of tried to figure out what that means. I kind of always felt like that pricing, the pricing that made sense for this in terms of it, when they talked about affordability, I kind of didn't think they were thinking $400 or something dumb like that. Like they're not going to go out there and take a big loss on it or whatever. And it's not something that is just a pure console. And so I was thinking somewhere in the range of a PS5 Pro level of pricing, like somewhere in the $750, $800 range, 6 to 8, something like that is probably where I was looking in. And the other thing they said is, the quote here is, I think if you build a PC from parts and get to basically the same level of performance, that's the general price window we aim to be at. That's a really hard thing to do right now because RAM is going to cost more. Like, I don't know how many of these things are built already, but like, I don't know if you've looked at RAM prices recently or today or whatever, but like, I saw an article going around basically saying like, yeah, like RAM, if you wanted to buy RAM for your PC, it's more expensive than a PlayStation 5 now. Like this stuff went up like crazy amounts of money, and it's been creeping up for a while, but it really has been spiking lately. People are blaming it on AI and data center needs, and like, oh, we need all this RAM for all these fucking data centers that we're never going to build. And so a lot of RAM is getting hoarded right now as a result of that. And so that has caused these prices to, in some cases, like triple. And like, in case you needed one more reason to think that Sam Altman is a fucking piece of shit, like, here's one more industry that's going to get fucking ruined by this fucking garbage. Good work, everyone. This has led to, some of these articles seem a little speculative in nature, or some of the sourcing on them doesn't always seem like it is fully locked down. But there's a story going around saying that Microsoft is going to be extra boned by the RAM crunch because the manufacturing on Xboxes was, always relatively tight on the turnaround. They have not been building warehouses and warehouses full of Xbox Series X's, and that as a result, they may be caught flat-footed by the increase in RAM prices. But at the same time, A, who knows if that's true? B, how many more Xbox Series X's are they gonna make? Right? Like, we think about the original Xbox and how that stuff sort of went poof off of store shelves. Like that, I feel like that's kind of already happened. Like, if finding Xboxes on shelves has in some places felt a little spotty lately. I don't know. I have not seen a well-stocked Xbox section in a retail store for a little while now. So I don't know what their stock situation is. Maybe they have more than enough made now that they're never going to need to make any more, and who cares, right? I think I would not be shocked by that, between the demand on the hardware and also whatever they have left, combined with a lack of desire to build more of them if the RAM prices suddenly shot up or whatever. But yeah, that's another fun thing that Valve may run into as well. I don't know, like what does affordably priced mean when RAM suddenly went through the fucking roof? I don't know what the answer to that question is, because we don't know enough about the supply chain and that Valve has in place and all of that sort of stuff. We were talking last week about sales of Black Ops 7, the latest Call of Duty game, and just like how is that game performing and all of that. Like, quality wise, I think that game is not amazing. The competitive multiplayer is fine. They had a double XP weekend over the weekend. I mean, I played it enough to prestige, which is it feels like it gets easier every year. So I don't know that that's necessarily any kind of feat. They also rolled the end game mode out to everybody on Friday, which I believe I was talking last week about. Like, I bet they'll roll that mode out to everyone pretty soon, because originally that's their like extraction light mode that seems very neat, but they locked it behind you having to finish the campaign. And no one wants to finish the campaign. No one wants to play. Don't play the campaign. This continues to be my advice. And now you don't have to, which is kind of weird in some ways, because the campaign is actually kind of a decent little tutorial for some of the systems that you will need to engage with in the end game mode. But it's not like it's some super complicated thing. You'll pick it up, whatever. Yeah, unless you want to see giant Michael Rooker, then, by all means play it. I mean, the campaign, play it. If you're going to play that game anyway, make sure you play it with friends and laugh at the insane things that happen in that campaign. It's interesting, if nothing else. Whatever. We talked about all that stuff last week. But they rolled out the end game mode. They already had a double XP weekend. They've had a Nuketown 24/7 playlist ever since that map hit the game last week. And so that is what they do. That always felt like something they turned on when they needed to like boost engagement numbers, or something that was like, okay, we're going to turn the Nuketown 24/7 playlist on so that people go out there and they grind for their camos. Like, even, which I think is a shitty, like, turning that game into who can unlock all the different gun skins as fast as possible feels like something for absolute lunatics that are off to the side being fucking weirdos. But like, I think it was their Twitter account. I should find it. So I don't get this wrong. But like, the official Call of Duty Twitter account, their account like profile information says, "On the Black Ops 7 camo grind," which to me feels like another kind of level of, I feel like acknowledging that, like, don't play the game to have fun. Just fucking play whatever the craziest map you can, like as fast as you can, to grind out all the shit as quickly as possible. Like, the camo grind is like a really negative thing to me. So for them to acknowledge it, I think is not great. I think it's something that I think kind of undersells the game that they make. Anyway, it's whatever, right? Combine all that with, like, they did not put out any kind of celebratory message saying, like, this is the fastest Black Ops selling, we sold this many, there's this many matches played. Like there was always some metric that after the first weekend they would put out a thing saying, like, this has been the biggest year for this number of hours played or number of games sold, or, you know, whatever metric they could point to. None of that. They put out a thing saying, like, just thanks everybody for playing, it's going to be a good year, or, you know, whatever, like a very generic a very generic kind of thing. We have something resembling sales data. Remember, you know, sales data, especially this early in a month, or this early after a game's release date, is always kind of weird. And that sales data is nothing, has not been a perfect science for decades. Like the transition to digital sales has been ruinous, is a strong word, but a lot of the metrics have changed, and a lot of the access to the data is different than it used to be. Back in the good old days, you used to know exactly how much a game sold, and, you know, like those numbers were proprietary information, because NPD didn't want everyone to have them, and you had to pay NPD for those numbers and all of that stuff. But, like, the numbers were there. Nowadays, it's like some publishers report digital sales and some don't, and some this and this and that. And so it's, you know, that stuff's kind of all over the place. And so what we end up getting is numbers out of Europe and out of the UK, because their tracking is a little bit different. And so that's what some of this stuff comes from. This comes from GSD, which is a group that tracks digital and physical sales across Europe. And the game business, the game has gotten a hold of these numbers. And those numbers have been collected and combined with some other stats from videogameschronicle.com, your home for the news, and a secondary home for energy drink coverage if you're hurting for it. Basically, according to the GSD data, opening week sales of Black Ops 7 are 63% below Battlefield 6's debut week. Which is, you know, an interesting kind of, I guess, note in conjunction with a lot of this stuff. But also that, you know, launch sales were down more than 60% in Europe compared to last year's game. And so, you know, the Black Ops 7 initial launch feels like it is very off. It feels like that they are off target for the year. I would say that they are off target qualitatively for sure. But that doesn't always, you know, there have definitely been years where I've been like, man, Call of Duty, they are having a bad fucking year, and it is still the best selling game of the year. And to that end, Matt Piscatella from Circana, reported some of the engagement metrics for PlayStation and for Xbox. And on Xbox, Call of Duty was the number one played game, and on PlayStation, it was number 2. I will say anecdotally, when I launch Call of Duty, you know, when you get into a multiplayer lobby in Call of Duty, it will show an icon next to the player's name that lets you know what platform they're on. And on Steam, it shows all of them because they don't care. You know, Steam doesn't make them change it. On console, sometimes, like, you know, if you're playing on PlayStation, it won't show the Xbox logo or whatever. And so you're kind of left in the dark. But I will say that the overwhelming majority, and this has kind of always been the case, even when Sony was doing, you know, co-marketing for the game and everything, back in the PlayStation 4 days, most of the icons I see in multiplayer lobbies are Xbox logos. And so that then opens up the possibility that they are playing on Game Pass. There's also a separate icon that they do for people who are playing the Xbox version, or rather they're playing on a PC, but they're still playing the Xbox Game Store version on PC. And so those are people that may also be playing it via Game Pass and all of that other shit. So, you know, like Game Pass having an impact on sales, like maybe not. Obviously, the price of that thing just went up, in a very dramatic way, and so Game Pass is a much less appetizing option than it has been in years past, but also some players may just still be subscribed, and we'll see if they lapse over the course of this year. A game the quality level of Black Ops 7 is certainly not going to help people feel good about their Game Pass subscription. Except for maybe the idea of, oh, wait, well, at least I didn't have to pay $70 for it. You know, there's always that version of the Game Pass game of like, boy, this game was not great. I'm glad I didn't pay real money for it. You know, kind of a false premise in some ways, but hey. But I found that to be interesting. I don't know, like, you know, the Steam numbers, which again, Call of Duty is a console franchise. You know, let's not lie to ourselves about it. Call of Duty's numbers on, Steam DB for player counts and stuff like that have not been great. The, if you look at the launch day for the game and, so yeah, again, these numbers may not be 100% accurate or whatever, but like the day before launch of Black Ops 7, 42,000 people played Call of Duty. Remember, they roll all the games into one launcher, and so all of the games are technically just called Call of Duty, and it's kind of weird, but 42,000 there, and then the following day 86,000. And then over the course of into that weekend they got over 100K, but it's not a huge spike. And obviously, like, Call of Duty on Steam is sort of a weird thing because you've got some people that maybe bought it on BattleNet when it wasn't available on Steam, and maybe they're used to playing it there. Versus now you have the Xbox app and Game Pass. And so, like it is fractured. And so, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, this is how many copies it sold. Like, obviously you can never infer that. But I think like for like, when you just look at purely the Steam numbers, you have a game that in 2022 had almost 500,000 people playing it. And now here we are, and they're struggling to break 100K for what is one of the best selling games of the year every year. Like, it doesn't seem like a great story, right? For whatever reason, right? And, the quality of this year's game is certainly not helping. It feels like there was a lot of people who just didn't even know it was coming out, which I don't know how that, I think game marketing is broken in a lot of ways. And I think some people are just like always being surprised by new releases because they're not always hearing about them. In the run up to release, and there's something. So I've said before that there is something weird going on there, but also it is the most competitive year for shooting in kind of a long time. Battlefield 6. I don't necessarily think these games are like pure competitors to each other because they're dramatically different, right? Like, maybe Battlefield 6 scratches a similar itch for you, and maybe it doesn't, is my point. They are relatively different. They are different enough video games and how they play and the strategies involved and the pace of play and all of those things that there's no guarantee that you can just drop in, replace one with the other, and 100% of the people are going to go, yay, or whatever, right? Obviously, there's some overlap. And so I think Battlefield 6 has been a tremendous story for EA. Like, the Steam numbers on that look fantastic. Like, it has been doing very well. It seems like it's been a very good game this year. Or rather, people are receiving it much better than they have previous Battlefield games. Like, it's not like they rewrote the book on what a Battlefield game is. They just kind of made a good one of those. And they played their boots on the ground card and said, we're getting back to what matters in Battlefield. Shooting people in the face, chest, and neck. And people are eating it up. And, the Battle Royale mode notwithstanding, it seems like, some people have not liked that very much. But I don't know, I'm sure that's contributing to the numbers in some capacity. And, to Black Ops, to give Black Ops the benefit of the doubt, they have not had a Warzone update for Black Ops 7 yet. It is still last year's battle royale. They will eventually roll out Warzone updates, and maybe that will be something that brings free-to-play players back to the game. And so maybe that's when they could see a spike. I don't know. You also have Arc Raiders. Obviously a very different type of shooter, but it is a shooter that has been making inroads with a lot of people that you might have thought would not gravitate towards a game like this, an extraction style shooter. But it's kind of become one of the social stories of the year because of, the viral videos making the rounds of people telling each other, don't shoot, and trying to, social engineer their way through some of those situations. And that has been very interesting. Now I think obviously that's a game that is even further outside of in terms of like drop in replacements for Call of Duty. Arc Raiders is even less of one of those, but it has been attracting an audience. I'm sure it pulled players away from a lot of different games. Fred Chuck Dave says Arc Raiders gobbled the Helldivers audience. Methinks, yeah, sure, yeah, that's probably true to some extent, but I'm sure it's pulling from a lot of different games. Like, I'm sure there were some Battlefield players who bailed on it in favor of that. Yeah, Marvel Rivals is, no one is ever happy about Marvel Rivals. It's a hero shooter. No one's ever happy about a hero shooter. Blizzard learned that the hard way. Blizzard was there when the sentiment turned, and then Marvel Rivals came out and everyone was happy, and then suddenly they weren't. And yeah, I don't know, but all of that adds up to a very interesting competitive environment for a Call of Duty game to exist in, and it's not favorable to them. And I saw someone float the idea of like, dang, maybe they thought that they could kind of coast this year because GTA was going to come out, and they were going to, obviously GTA was going to eat up a ton of their sales no matter what, and be the best-selling game of the year no matter what. So they kind of just rolled with it on Black Ops 7, and whoops, now GTA 7 got pushed. And so now whatever game comes out next year gets to deal with that too. And so, yeah, I don't know. That's probably going to bite them in the ass next year to a certain extent as well. But it's also, like this is, if we look at the last 3 years of Call of Duty, there has been one game in there that I would call universally great, and it's last year's game, Black Ops 6. Because the game that came before Black Ops 6 was Modern Warfare 3, the game that also felt like an afterthought tacked on to the game before it, with a campaign that feels like it is, thrown, like crafted out of the hides of multiplayer mode, sewn together and hoping for the best. And there's a lot of commonalities between Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 7 in that kind of same way. And yeah, I don't know. That's not a good trend. That's not the trend you want to be on, right? Because like when they rebooted this game in 2019 or whatever, like it really gave them a new lease on life. Like that game, like Call of Duty, felt like it was enough years strung together of like questionable games that you were like, man, maybe this thing's on its fucking way out, huh? Like maybe Call of Duty is finally kind of on its way out. And then the Modern Warfare reboot came out and you're like, oh wait, no, like I want to play a fucking 1,000 hours of this goddamn game. Holy shit, this is good. Like they kind of got it all back because they made a damn good game, and because they re-engineered a lot of the tech to make it seem better. Like the audio was better. Like just across the board, they put in work to make dramatic changes to that game. And when they pointed that out, they had folks go to Infinity Ward. I went to Infinity Ward to see the game. And it was immediately, you saw it. They didn't have to spend a bunch of time telling you about like, well, for the audio, we did this. Like you heard it. You looked at it. You went like, fuck, wow, okay. You guys actually like put in, like you guys actually like lifted up and replaced a ton of things in this game. and it still feels good and still does, like it still does the things you want it to do. And so it gave it a dramatic new lease on life that then over the course of those, 6 years or so, they've started to squander in different ways. There's still been really bright points here and there. I thought Modern Warfare 2 was pretty good. I think Black Ops 6 is fantastic. Black Ops Cold War, it was all right. It's okay. Anyway, I wonder what, what they are going to do with that thing going forward. Like, I don't know that this is, like, whatever happens this year, I think they can point to, like, well, yeah, we wanted to go back to back with Black Ops, and that's going to have a cost. Like, that's the campaign is going to suffer as a result because of this, that, and the other, like these games being developed kind of simultaneously and being back-to-back sequels. Like, that doesn't feel like a dramatic enough change as it does when you go from Black Ops to Modern Warfare back to Black Ops to, like, you get a different feel over the course of that. Whereas going Black Ops 6, Black Ops 7, or Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, which they also did, I think that it hastens the it's not as smart of a way to do it. I think it ends up reminding people of just like, hey, you're playing the same fucking thing, and I think it makes the fatigue build up a lot more quickly when you don't change it up that way. And so I really, when you think about Modern Warfare 3 as a DLC add-on for Modern Warfare 2, which is apparently, that was all the reporting was that they started it that way and then eventually pivoted it into a full-priced thing, it shows. Like, that's a very good explanation for why Modern Warfare 3 is the way it is. You look at it and you go like, oh, yeah, if this started like that, that all makes sense. Like, I don't think it's a great outcome, but like, I at least understand how you got here. I didn't really hear any of that around Black Ops 7. But the decisions just, I don't know, it just feels very questionable. Anyway, some of that seems to be borne out in the sales story, at least for what we have of it so far. And all they can really hang their hat on is the announcement, like the phrase they go back to with this game is it's the biggest Call of Duty ever. Which I don't know how you're measuring that, if it's like just playable space because the campaign levels are these big wide open areas, or if it's the number of maps and zombies, but if it's just like, if it's just the square footage of the playable space, that's probably true in some way. I don't know. It doesn't feel, I feel like there have been Black Ops games that maybe are technically not bigger, but they felt bigger by virtue of how new and exciting some of the things they were doing were. This does not. Eminem, everyone's favorite rapper, is coming back to video games. Hot off the heels of his successful turn in both Quake 3 Arena and 50 Cent Bulletproof, Eminem is back as the next elusive target in Hitman. The last one of those was Bruce Lee. This is an interesting, tie-in that is happening like a year too late. Because was it the last Eminem record was basically this same topic. Released in July of 2024, The Death of Slim Shady was an Eminem album where he kind of pit himself, Eminem, against his alter ego, Slim Shady. And then whoever wins, we lose, that kind of thing. So here we are now, well over a year later, and now the goal will be to take out Slim Shady. They've reworked the Hokkaido level to look like a crazy Eminem recording studio hospital thing. and they will be playing off of some of the same concepts that the album did in terms of, the Eminem versus the Slim Shady persona, which I think in that album was not very well done. Like Eminem sat down and tried to make a concept record and tried to kind of do his you know, like try to make like, oh, I'm gonna go up against my old alter ego that was like back from the albums that you liked or that everyone liked, I guess. And really played into this kind of, there's something that like guys that are like, and a lot of them are around my age, I guess. But there's something that like people do, and I think it's a real out of touch way to present yourself. And it's something that not just Eminem is guilty of, but there was a vibe to this album where I think he literally voices it in a couple of spots where he's just like, he's saying some stuff as Eminem is wont to do. He's saying he's got some edgy material about consent or laws or whatever, you know, like whatever, right? And then, you know, he says his thing that is supposed to be this big shocking thing, and then is like, oh, what are you gonna do? Cancel me? And it's like, no, what? Who does? No, what is that? It's 2025. No one's talking. Like the only people that are talking about cancel culture as a thing, like, it's the same people that still try to use the word woke as a we're against the woke. I was like, what is that? What does that even mean? What do you think that word means? Because I assure you, you are off base on your definition of it. And like the idea of people that are just like, man, I cancel. It's a lot of like Gen X. There's like a lot of like, and when this album was coming out, there's a lot of like old dudes on TikTok. A lot of old white men on TikTok, like much like myself, an old white man on TikTok, who was like, oh, Eminem's coming back, you Gen Z fucking idiots, or you can't cancel him. And it's just like the most like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What are you saying? Like, what do you think any of that means? What the fuck is wrong with you? And like his album like plays into that. And it's just like, okay, I don't know, man. Eminem is just saying shit to say shit. And like, you know, is he going to say something homophobic? And then he's going to be like, oh, you going to cancel me? He's like, I don't know, man. He's been doing that the whole time. Like that's the, you know, whatever. And also like, you know, not even convinced that he believes any of that stuff and whatever. And so like, it was like from a concept album perspective, I don't think that last Eminem record worked very well at all. And I think that ultimately, I think the big problem with Eminem, if I were to have to put a point on it, is that Eminem ran out of stuff to rap about. And you get to a point where you just, you know, like, okay, like this guy he just doesn't really have much more to say. He has told us so much over the decades about his upbringing and his mother and his, you know, and his ex-wife and how he wants to kill her. And you know, like, I mean, he's done a lot of drugs and now he's not doing the drugs. And then he's in a relapse. And, you know, like there's a lot of stuff like that. Right. And I think the last Recovery, I think is an amazing album from Eminem in terms of like having something to say about like, man, I really fucking need to clean my shit up and fucking live. And, you know, like there's a growth as a person thing happening there. Like the songs are of a quality like that I think is, you know, he has not touched since. And I think it's like the last time he had anything relevant to say. When you get around that, you get into just like, I don't know, he's rapping about how he has an elevator in his house. You're like, what? All right, yeah. And at some point, Eminem transitioned, and, you know, like when he was putting out albums and Dr. Dre was producing them and all and this and that, like it felt like they were sitting down, coming up with concepts, and they were writing songs, and they were, you know, like stuff was happening. And there was a certain guidance there on the production side to make sure that these songs would be fucking hit songs. And some of that is reining in the instincts of a battle rapper who is just there to say, I am the fucking best fucking rapper on the planet. And that, whoever was in charge of like saying, no, you should make songs, like, is not in the picture anymore, because everything he does now is just like, I am going to rap as much and as fast as I fucking can. I am going to show you that no one can fucking do it like me. There is going to be wordplay in this that, you know, as if you're listening to it and going like, as an MC, like, this shit is fucking crazy. You're like, wow, man, this is like, you are on another level. And he proves it time and time again and no, it's not in question. You know, you're just like, wow. Like, this is ridiculous what you're doing, how fast you can do it. And, you know, and the complexity of some of this stuff. And so he's just writing technical raps for people that care about technical raps. And that's really neat. But he's not proving anything to anyone. Everyone knows who he is and what he's capable of. And you're like, okay, yeah, you can still do that. It kind of ruins this song. Like, your verse on this track is like kind of fucking bad. Like, it's not like, I don't want to listen to this. Like, I listen to it and go like, wow, that's crazy. Wow, man, this is neat. I don't ever want to hear this again. It's like it's super impressive that you can do this. But like that's not, I don't know. The initial batch of Eminem albums, the first 3 records, I say the first 3 records and then Recovery, really. Kind of everything else kind of like, you know, whatever. Is like, again, there was structure to that material. There was structure to those songs. There were hooks. There were, you know, and it didn't take away from any of his capabilities as a rapper. It didn't take away from any of it. Like, people in this chat are saying that Relapse is good, and what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is? I'm looking it up right now just to make sure that I'm not like, that I don't have the fucking names of these albums wrong. Because if Relapse is the album that yeah, fuck you. What the fuck is wrong with you? There are multiple people in this chat saying Relapse is so good. Yeah, go listen to Bagpipes from Baghdad, you fucking idiots. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're gonna go listen to My Mom? Like, Eminem at his most, like, I'm just gonna talk like Cartman? Because that's the only, like, I just watch a lot of South Park? Like, that's like the fucking, Relapse is the bottom. Is the absolute bottom of Eminem's career. Are you fucking high? Holy shit, man. What? Dude, no. Fucking absolute no. Yeah, Fast Cat says Relapse Defenders are the new Star Wars prequel Defenders. Jesus Christ. Relapse. Fuck me, man. Anyway, Eminem's gonna be in Hitman, which seems fun. I don't know. Maybe just go install that Quake 3 level that came with Eminem and Dre models. Like, Relapse was the album where you went like, oh, this is not working anymore. Like, Relapse is fucking, oh my God, Relapse is bad. Relapse is the worst thing he'd put out. Relapse is the absolute worst album he has ever released. Recovery. Again, Recovery feels like an adult record for adults. It's like, he like, hey, I really went through some shit and now I'm going to rap about it. And you're like, wow, yeah, this is like, it's super impressive. Yeah, Encore is maybe not a great record either. Anyway. Slim Shady has transformed his former operating theater into a fully equipped broadcasting studio where he delivers erratic live performances to a captive audience of staff and inmates. I don't know. They put out a trailer. If you want to see it, go watch that. It's a neat idea, but again, it's like a weird year too late kind of thing. For an album that came out in July of last year, like if this had been timed to happen right around the same time as that album coming out, it would have been a really interesting tie-in sort of thing. But I do wonder, like, what hijinks Agent 47 will be able to get up to inside of this environment as you kill Eminem and dress up like Eminem or something to that effect. Like, I'm curious about this in a way that I was not especially curious about in the Bruce Lee thing that they did. Relapse. Fuck. Dude. What the fuck are you talking about? There's going to be a Far Cry TV show. From Noah Hawley and Rob Mack, who is the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who has renamed himself to Rob Mack. M-A-C, no K on that, which I think is, like, it just makes it look like even more of a fake name. I don't know. Kind of an interesting thing about this is that it's, according to Variety, it is an anthology format, which they say, like, the sentence that Variety wrote is like, it's both true, but also it's kind of not how we really think about games and sequels to games. While exact plot details are being kept under wraps, the series will follow an anthology format like the games and feature a different cast and setting each season. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, like, yeah, that's... Far Cry is not a game that is necessarily attached from one game to the next. And it's interesting to, like, yeah, I guess, does that make it an anthology series? Like, no one calls it that, but I suppose that makes sense. And as far as, like, for what you would do with a Far Cry television series, I suppose that makes sense as well, because, like, what is Far Cry? It's with some exception, like, isn't the story of Far Cry, like, there's a lot of shit going down on this island. This island is fucked up. Like, that's the story of the Far Cry franchise is this island is there's a lot happening here. FX is doing this, and I believe it is coming to Hulu. Is that? Yeah. It will stream on Hulu in the US and Disney Plus internationally. Maybe I am a little out of touch on networks and what airs where, but as soon as you tell me a series will stream on Hulu, my gut feeling is like, oh, well, that's not going to be very good. Like, what, Hulu is like a half step up from Tubi. It ain't a proper streaming service. Anyway, I don't know. The other funny thing I will say here is that it is very, when you think about television and how many franchises or how many shows just get shut the fuck down with little to no warning, I think having an expectation like, oh, it's going to be an anthology format where it'll have a different cast and setting each season. Like, oh, so you're going to make multiple seasons. You're just like, oh, yeah, season 2 is definitely happening. Season 3, absolutely. Like, make sure you get your good shit in first, I guess. I guess we should take odds. Do you think that there will be a season 2 of Far Cry? I don't know. They have some quotes as well, but it's not, I don't know. Getting to work alongside Noah Hawley is a dream realized, said Mack. Ubisoft has been remarkably generous in trusting us with one of the most iconic video game worlds ever created. It's not a world, though. It's an anthology series. Like, what's the world of Far Cry? Again, has an island. It's fucked up. And then sometimes there's, Montana or whatever. Montana is like an island in a lot of ways, if you think about it. So yeah, I don't know. You know, to create a big action, and Noah Hawley says to create a big action show that can change from year to year while always exploring the nature of humanity through this complex and chaotic lens is a dream come true. I'm excited to partner with Rob and bring our shared irreverent, ambitious sensibility to the screen. I think, you know, like the particulars of Far Cry, or what makes Far Cry a Far Cry game, are not things I would call especially iconic, or like, it's fertile ground insofar as, like, it's an island, a lot of crazy shit happens. Like, no one's sitting there thinking about, like, what's going to happen in the next Far Cry? Where's the next Far Cry going to take place? Like, those are minimal. And the nice thing about Far Cry, to its credit, has been it's been the characters and the performances that have really driven like marketing level interest in that game. It's been like, oh, well, here's who we're casting as the villain, and look at this performance. And, you know, they've been able to build some really interesting stuff up around that. But like the rest of it is like, if you kill all these alligators, you can make a bigger wallet. If you spend a skill point here, you can do takedown attacks on the big guys. This one's got dinosaurs. I don't know. Like, you know, it's sort of a blank slate in a lot of ways. And so, you know, I think that that's probably good for them in terms of making a television show, but also I don't like it. It's not the most, you know, I don't think that there's that much to pull from. And it's nice that they don't have to deal with a bunch of bullshit lore, right? Like, what's the lore of Far Cry? There's nothing. There's like not a lot of shared storyline DNA between these games. And so they'll be able to get away with anything they want to in terms of story and focus that they want to take and what have you. For better or worse, right? Yeah, bust open the Far Cry Historia and let's really get this timeline down and see what's what, you know? But I don't know, like there's something like, it would be interesting to see them try to pull in some of the villains of actual Far Cry, right? Like if they said, oh, we're going to make Voss the villain this year, and we're going to, you know, like if they actually tried to do something like that, I think that, like, as someone who liked Far Cry 3 and 4 quite a bit, I think that it would be interesting to see them try to do something that reflected those games in a more specific way. Or they could just, like, what if they just put out a TV show that was the equivalent of Far Cry 2, and it was just like a fucking miserable man with malaria running away from fucking fire. Like, that's the whole, like, oh, like he gets malaria and then sets a hillside on fire, and then, oh shit, the rest of it is guns jamming up and grenades rolling downhill, and that's the whole thing. I'd watch 12 of those. Anyway, that's the news. Let's take our final ad break. We'll come back. We'll get into your emails. There are a lot of great reasons to have access to a VPN service these days, regardless of what you're into. I think, you know, a lot of people think like, oh, well, I only need a VPN if I'm being extremely shady. And I'm here to tell you, no, sometimes you're only being mildly shady. Or, hey, you know what? Sometimes you're being not shady at all. Sometimes you're just somewhere weird and you don't trust their network. I was at my daughter's dance class the other day, and there was no signal inside. And I was like, I got to get on the Wi-Fi here. I was like, but who knows who set up the Wi-Fi here? Someone shady gonna, you know, try to look at every single thing I'm doing on my phone while I'm in this building. I had better flip on my VPN. I'd better flip on my NordVPN. NordVPN is the leading VPN service trusted by millions of internet users worldwide, offering a comprehensive solution for online security and privacy. They've got services like a dark web monitor that'll let you know, if your email addresses have shown up into any kind of, dumps of credentials that seem to be happening more and more these days. So they'll let you know, hey, you should go change a bunch of your passwords and all of that stuff to make sure that you're good to go. Of course, a VPN will let you appear that you are somewhere you're not, which is very handy for a variety of reasons. Including, let's say you wanted to sign up for, I don't know, a streaming wrestling service that allowed you to pay a monthly fee to watch professional wrestling with no commercials, and you get to watch the wrestling during the commercial breaks. It's very exciting. The commentary is... Anyway, NordVPN makes it happen. Sometimes you get different prices just by acting like you're in a different location. You get rid of that kind of price discrimination. Just flip on the VPN, just decide where in the world you want to be today. And, and you're good to go. You can set it up at the router level, even if you want your whole home network to be protected. Nord lets you stay logged in on 10 different devices. That's a lot of devices. You also get access to friendly 24/7 customer support. Threat Protection Pro to, if you're looking for something to scan some of your downloaded files for malware and that sort of thing, looking out for phishing links, Nord's got a product for that in their VPN as well, and that's handy. It's not just about encrypting and securing your traffic. It's about a whole suite of sweet tools. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Jeff Gerstmann. This link will give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Check it out, nordvpn.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Emails, it's time. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Send me an email, and there's, I would say, a better than average chance that I will see it. They're coming in at a rate these days that is sometimes hard to keep up with. Dave Norris writes in, says, what is the worst promo item you've ever seen in the video game industry? The worst promo item. I don't know, there's a lot less of them these days than there used to be. It used to just be a lot of extra large size t-shirts with a logo of a game on it. That was kind of a constant thing. But I think the weirdest or worst thing that I've been sent is when they sent out all of that raw meat with a Bulletstorm USB stick, somewhere stuck in the middle of it. That's probably the most disgusting thing that I've ever encountered in my years doing this. Hey, dig through this meat in case there's anything in there. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot for that one. Great. They sent out straitjackets with people's names on them for Batman Arkham. I guess it was Arkham Asylum. It wasn't. Yeah. For Asylum, they had some Batman straitjackets, which is kind of cool. Gosh, what else, man? There's I have a Walkman, like an FM radio tape player that has the 3DO logo on it. Not from the 3DO console days, but from when they were, just a game publisher, when they were putting out Army Men and High Heat Baseball. I have a 3DO tape deck. It's kind of sweet, to be honest. But the worst promo item, it's probably got to be the raw meat. I don't know. Like most of them are pretty, are kind of whatever. I remember one year someone sent us a tree, like a bonsai setup, like a little kind of plant these seeds into this. And it's oh, okay. For Saints Row, they sent a gigantic dildo bat, like the one in the game, which was fun. Cocaine Moon asks, who sent the brass knuckles? That was EA for the Godfather game, if I remember correctly. that they decided to send out Nux and then realized, oh, these are against the law. Whoops. We have committed an actual crime mailing these. But I got for Manhunt, they sent out the wire, the garrote, the wire for choking people out, the slightly sharp, lightly barbed wire for strangling people. I've got that out in the garage just in case. You never know. But yeah, I don't know. Like that's it's stuff like that. But I don't know. The worst promo items are the things that like take up space, and you're like, why do we have this? The dumbest thing we got at GameSpot. They sent us like, and I think they sent these out to retail to like as part of a pre-order campaign, as part of like a marketing in-store setup, like a kiosk. But it was like a Lara Croft like mannequin. It was a mannequin that they had done up to look like Lara Croft. And we put it all together, and it just kind of sat in the office for a long time, and we would get bad t-shirts from publishers and put it on the mannequin. And we were always saying like, we should fucking send this fucking thing back. Like it was human, it was a mannequin. It was human size. It was a fucking mannequin. And it was always like, we should send this back to them, and we don't want this fucking shit. Like, what the fuck? But it's a lot harder to box something up and send it back to, than you're just like, fuck, all right, whatever. I guess we have this stupid thing now. And then parts would like an arm would be missing all of a sudden, and so that thing eventually, fell apart or whatever. For one of the Matt Hoffman games, they sent a Matt Hoffman bike, and that took up a bunch of space in the office for a very long time. Yeah, I don't know. Like stuff like that is more annoying than cool, but a lot, whatever. Like it was a different era. I don't think a lot of places get that, though. I guess a bunch of people just got like Xbox Crocs or something, right? I saw Greg Miller posting pictures of Xbox Crocs. So I don't know if they're selling those or what the deal is, but okay. So sometimes there is still weird goods that are sent around. Let's see here. Marty writes in and asks, is the best GPU good enough? You recently said, if I'm running desktop, hit me in the face with all that shit. Highest game settings, meaning highest game settings. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to turn everything up to ultra and cackle as it still runs above 60 frames per second because I spent money specifically to do that. That got me thinking of other people who have said the same thing. I've heard PC players talk about how they want some high-end settings. Oh, this is an insane sentence here. I've heard PC players talk about how they want some high-end settings to be hidden from them because if they turn them all up to max, then they won't be able to do that cackling thing on the latest GPU. They want to have to click a button called future GPU settings or whatever to unlock those settings. It sounds like they don't feel like they got their money's worth if those high-end settings are exposed to them. Even though they saw the specs, they saw the benchmarks, and they thought it was a good purchase, seeing those settings made them feel dissatisfied with their purchase. Do you think that some graphics settings need to be hidden to make people feel better about their purchase? I think finding the right settings for the performance level you want is just part of PC gaming. So basically the idea of like, some of the settings should be locked away because they're not for any device that exists on the market today. And so if you just go and you turn every single thing up all the way up, then it's not going to run well because it's theoretically made for something that might not exist yet. I don't want settings to be hidden away like if anything, I want the opposite of that. I want the most insane options. Like I want to take my, I have a 5090 in this machine here. I want to be able to turn settings up to a degree that it cannot hit 30 frames a second. I want to look at it and go like, wow, okay. Like I want to see games being pushed forward. I want to see games that take advantage of the 5090 because I don't feel like there are very many of those. Like I feel like even in games where I'm turning the settings all the way up and still getting good frame rates, I still feel like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like this stuff looks fine. Like it doesn't feel like things are pushing forward in some ways, but you know, I don't want to feel like, you need to hide the fake the settings that are the settings that won't run well on my machine. You should hide them from me. That's not like when I talk about simplifying settings in PC games, I'm specifically talking about for lower end machines, for handhelds, for consoleizing the PC experience and trying to find ways to make it easier for people to just like not have to touch the settings at all. I don't want to have to touch the settings at all. Honestly, what I would prefer is for the NVIDIA app to be good instead of kind of bad. I would love to be able to install a game and have it go, here are the settings that are appropriate for your GPU. And maybe I select a few kind of templates of like, hey, I want to make sure that it doesn't go below this frame rate. And so if it's got dynamic resolution and, make sure, turn it on for that or that, like I would prefer to use DLAA if possible. If it still runs at a good enough frame rate to do so, and the vast majority of the time it does, but like I would much rather be able to have that be very easy and not have to go through 3 pages of settings and scroll all the way down and go, okay, like, I still want to have that stuff there because it's, sometimes you do want to tweak things and sometimes you're testing things out in a variety of ways and you're like, I'm curious about this. And, but generally speaking, I think that games should just kind of work out of the box, look as good as they can possibly look while still being performant and be done with it. I'm not here to stare at menus. I'm here to play the games. And I don't like that I have to do that at all. But at the same time, I do want the ability to get in there and fuck around with it. If I have specific interests or needs or whatever that are not being met, I would still like to be able to go in and fuck around with it. Or if I'm trying to, like, I'm curious, just like, hey, man, what if I turn this up? Does it make the frame rate? Like, it's interesting. So, Doom: The Dark Ages patched in path tracing at some point. And when I turn on path tracing, that game runs like shit. When I if I go turn Doom: The Dark Ages all the way up, every single setting, it doesn't hit 30. And I find that fascinating. Because really, if I just toggle that off, that's the one setting. That's all. Like everything else in the game is set to ultra nightmare. And the minute I turn that setting off, the game looks a lot better because it's not doing any dynamic resolution things to maintain frame rate. It's not doing any kind of DLSS like fuckery. Like the image quality looks sharper and better, and the game runs at a great frame rate. And that's fascinating. I want to be able to fuck around with it. I think that's cool to mess around with. But like, that's not, again, for normal, just like, hey, I'm here to just play this fucking game and see if the game itself is any good or not, which is a much larger consideration than any of this graphics setting talk whatsoever, right? I think it would be cool to just look good and be done, a tool that was able to look at my CPU and my GPU and whatever else and just go, okay, we think this will, this is the right setting for you, which is what the NVIDIA app and some other stuff is supposed to do and is largely capable of. But sometimes the NVIDIA app just gets things wrong in a completely random way, or you have to tweak it to your preference. Like Destiny is a game that, Destiny 2, the NVIDIA app perpetually wants me to run Destiny 2 at a higher resolution than my monitor is set to and use DSR to set it back down. But whenever I try to run it that way, it does not run within the confines of the monitor. It bleeds over onto my second and third monitors. And so it's like cut across. It doesn't fill all 3 monitors. It's just like the image is bigger than one monitor. And so the NVIDIA app breaks that every single time. If I ever tell it to optimize like Destiny 2, it fucks it all up. The NVIDIA app is just incapable of doing that. And you can go in there and you can go, all right, fucking, no, I want the actual resolution of my monitor. Stop fucking around. And it'll go, well, we recommend that you run it this way and use DSR to do this and that. And I'm like, no, the game is unplayable when you do that, you stupid fucking piece of shit app. Like, stop doing it. And it's recommended it that way for years across multiple generations of GPUs. Destiny 2 in the NVIDIA app is terrible. Anyway, the NVIDIA app is not good. It is sometimes totally fine, but it is wrong often enough, or it doesn't let you ever prioritize in favor of like, hey man, these settings that you're setting me up with make the game run like shit. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on? You know, there's just a lot of stuff there that is clunky. But no, no, we should not be hiding anything from people to make them feel better about themselves. People should get I want the stark realities of the world staring me in the face at all fucking times, man. Don't hide graphical settings from me because you don't think my GPU can handle it. That's crazy. And the people that want that or need that, do these people actually exist? I don't know, but Marty is saying here that some people want to have to click a button called future GPU settings or something to unlock those settings. Those people are dopes. Those people just want to lie to themselves. They're weird children, if they actually exist. So yeah, no. Give me the gritty, ugly reality of if you tweak these settings too far, you can make the game run like shit. I want to see some of those trade-offs sometimes. You know? Eric in Northbrook writes in and says, if you open the Game Pass for PC app, there's a pop-up window reminding you that Call of Duty Black Ops 7 exists and you should play it, which seems strange to me since the game is already insanely popular, and I can't remember the app ever doing something like this before. Is this a sign of desperation on Microsoft's part, or am I just overthinking things? You'll notice that the app is currently skinned in a way that it shows like Black Ops 7 imagery during the loading screen as well. I don't know that I have seen this on the PC version of that app, but it is something that they have done on Xbox a handful of times. When they have when there's a big first party game coming out, they will, like, you'll turn on the console and it'll pop up the big thing that says like, hey man, Indiana Jones is out. You should play it. And you know, you're on Game Pass, so it's a button click away, but it's like reminding you like, hey, Outer Worlds 2 is here. And it is both invasive and also gone in an instant. And so I don't think they should do it. I think it's kind of a sleazy thing. You know, as a paying customer and all of that, I think that there are better ways to do that. As someone who is, you know, and well, maybe not for long, but you know, as someone has been a Game Pass subscriber, I think that's something that is kind of gross. But also it shows up once and you hit the button and it never shows up again. And as I was saying earlier, there is something kind of broken about just getting the information out to people that a game exists. And so I can't blame them on some level for trying to find ways to market their stuff. I think this is heavy-handed when it shows up on a full screen pop-up on the Xbox, when they have plenty of other ad space on the Xbox front page that they could just use for that. I think it is a very inelegant solution that is not awesome. But also it goes away very quickly. And when we talk about the Xbox interface, I think the crazy thing is that when you push a button to, like, when there's a tile on your Xbox dashboard and you push it and you think it's going to launch a game, now it launches a thing that just looks like the store page, and there's a second button you have to hit to play the game. And I'm like, why are we here? The game's installed. Like, do you think I clicked on this because I didn't want to launch the game? Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, what the fuck why am I here? Why did you add an extra button press into this? Fuck is happening? Like, that to me is crazy. because they were doing it better before. And so it's just like, this seems stupid. But yeah, they've started doing that for most of their first party games. Outer Worlds 2, I think, got a similar thing. I remember Indiana Jones getting it. And yeah, I don't know. Like, that stuff's, I don't know, kind of clumsy. Sony, Max writes in from New Hampshire and says, Sony published some strange commercials for the PlayStation back in the day, and I'm glad to see it's still a part of their strategy to this day. I just watched an ad of a woman stepping out of a commercial vehicle skewered by a skyscraper. No explanation, no marketing deal with the game, just a lot of what the fuck energy. Can you remember any weird old ads for PlayStation or any video game product for that matter? Sony's been really good at that over the years. You know, the initial marketing for the PlayStation, I think a lot of the stuff that came out of Europe, especially, like, they've always, the stuff coming out of the UK, it has always been better than our stuff when it comes to that. It's, you know, it's vibes based marketing. It's whatever you want to call it. It's marketing the brand at a time when the brand needed to be marketed. Which I think made a lot of sense in the early days of PlayStation and PlayStation 2, to say, hey, this is a thing. There's a thing out there. It's called PlayStation. Like, we could waste a bunch of time showing you a bunch of screenshots of video games and whatever, but like, this is more to just to get you curious about what the fuck is a PlayStation than anything else. And I think that was very effective at that point in time. These days, when PlayStation is such a known quantity and everything, I don't think they need to do nearly as much of that. The same way, like, I don't know. Again, you know, marketing and getting the word out about anything is much harder than it used to be, because we live in a world of ad blockers and fewer people watching television, ad-supported television anyway. I was going to say, you know, you think about the amount of money that McDonald's used to spend to remind people that McDonald's existed. I'm well aware that McDonald's exists, you know. It's not, you know, they're not telling you anything new with that stuff, but by constantly marketing McDonald's or Coke or any of these other kind of major brands, they kind of force it back into the, you know, the conversation or whatever. But like, I don't know what the fuck, what's going on in McDonald's now. I have no idea. What's the latest Coke ad? I have no idea. I don't see ads anymore. Generally, you know, like I see ads on like TikTok, and a lot of the TikTok ads lately have been Call of Duty. There's been a lot of Call of Duty ads on TikTok over the last, basically since launch day of the game. It's been nonstop Call of Duty ads. But I don't know anything about, I don't, people are saying that Coke started using AI polar bears and trucks. Yeah, I believe that. That's stupid. Of course, right? I saw that Amazon ad with that jack off in it. Talking about, you know, sending fucking tissues to, like, whatever the fuck, talking to his fucking Alexa. Like, apparently that dude is an esports guy. He fucking sucked. Like, everything about that dude sucks. That's all I know coming out of that ad is like, whoever this fucking jackoff is, he super fucking sucks. Like, what the fuck? And maybe he sucks less in real life. I don't know what the fuck his fucking deal is. But Jesus Christ. But I didn't see that ad naturally. I saw that ad because someone downloaded it to make fun of it. And so, which, you know, is an effective technique for advertising, I guess. At least I'm aware that Amazon still makes a fucking garbage ass fucking chat thing. So good for them. Here we are talking about Amazon.com. Your home for fucking dipshits, apparently. God, that dude sucked. Like, it was like every word out of his mouth in that ad was just like, God, dude, this is the most fucking embarrassing. This is the, like, It's the equivalent of that fucking Twitter thing of the esports team that was like you do not want this smoke. It's like the embarrassing fucking. It's a shame, man. I don't know. As a kid, I think all I wanted was for video games to be taken seriously and be put on a level with a lot of other media. And I was like, video games are really important and they're really good. And then they got there and it's just the fucking worst. Video games became mainstream and it's just been a fucking downhill slide ever since. Like, we need to gatekeep this shit again. What the fuck, man? It's just like, because it's stuff like that. It's the Spotify playlists that are just like the fucking in the game zone. Like, what is I was trying to, but like, all the like the stuff that gets marketed as like stuff for gamers. What is on? Oh, this is all going to be, I don't know. I guess maybe they've got heavy gamers. All these are custom or something now, I guess. I don't know. Like, maybe they changed them, but like they used to have like a bunch of playlists that were just like, for when you're in the fucking game zone doing your fucking gaming, dipshit, listen to this fucking music. And it's like all the fucking worst, like, major fucking key dubstep, like light, like the softest shit on the planet. And you're like, yeah, man, here's some stuff to game to. Yeah, I don't know. But like all that stuff that just gets marketed as like gamer stuff is so fucking embarrassing. And that dude is one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. I'm sure he's stoked. Hopefully it paid well, right? I don't know. But whatever, man. Should be ashamed of himself. But there's no shame left out there. We all know that. We live in a post-shame society. So what are you going to do? He got the bag. Tragic. Just a fucking tragic figure. Let's see. Zap from Ireland writes in and says, I think the Steam machine is very interesting, but not for the reasons it was made for. Making a compact TV media PC can be quite troublesome and expensive when you're getting into ITX boards and whatnot. I think this is a perfect solution to get rid of my TV's media PC tower, which is currently hiding behind my TV stand. What do you think? Yeah. I mean, it should be very capable of like, I don't know what specific apps you're looking to run, but I mean, the Plex app ran fine on my Steam Deck. So yeah, I mean, if you're hitting a server somewhere else, I wonder, what that processor, like if you were trying to store media on it and then play it elsewhere and run like a Plex server on the Steam machine, that might be trickier. I don't really know what you would end up with for transcoding capabilities, but that might, I don't know, that for like price for the power, like you might be able to do better than a Steam machine, depending on how much it costs and what the GPU is capable of for transcoding and whatever else. A lot of people building Plex machines just want like an Intel CPU that has QuickSync enabled, and they use the QuickSync transcoding for when they need to transcode. But also people that get really deep down the Plex rabbit hole are really into making sure that on the client side, none of the clients need to transcode in the first place. And so it's a lot of like, I let my mom use my Plex server and she's on some buttfuck bullshit TV and it transcodes all my stuff. And whenever she tries to watch anything, it transcodes, and I don't want any transcodes because I don't have the power for it, whatever it is. So, there's a lot of stuff like that. Plex just got the ability to transcode into 265. It used to only transcode into 264. But you can do hardware transcoding into 265 now, so it's like at least a little bit more efficient on the bandwidth end of things, if you care about that. But yeah, I don't know what the Yes, I'm sure this will be a perfectly capable machine to do the vast majority of that. If you want to watch a bunch of apps on it and streaming stuff, like, yeah, I'm sure it will be really good for that. It's the sort of thing that you could always probably do better for less money if you really investigated and did all of that stuff. So I don't know. It kind of depends on what you're looking for. Some people get real crazy with that stuff, especially on like the client end, where they're like, well, you want to get an NVIDIA Shield because the NVIDIA Shield can play these specific profiles of fucking Dolby Vision, and it doesn't play these and it doesn't play those. But yeah, building if you want to build a deliberately small machine from scratch, it's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass, for sure. Let's see. Ben writes and says, on the last episode, you shared some anecdotes about your experience with the Gizmondo, which got me thinking back to how back in 2005, I actually wanted one super badly. It was the perfect device for a weirdo who, since my middle school days, had been in the habit of using some form of PDA for day planning, note-taking, and other various tasks after being gifted a handspring visor by an uncle for Christmas. By 2005, the device I was using was a Palm Tungsten T3, and was also serving as a portable MP3 and video player and game console, and it could play any NES or Game Boy games on it using a freeware emulator called Little John Palm OS. This was a fantastic multi-system emulator that could run most everything from the 8-bit era at full speed with clean audio at a time when portable emulation systems were still a rarity. So the announcement of a device that not only did everything that my current Palm did, but also was a purpose-built gaming handheld with honest-to-God 3D games coming out for it, I was fucking sold. Of course, living in rural South Carolina meant my chances of buying one in a store were basically nil, and I couldn't get over the price tag on a minimum wage Walmart stalker's check. In a sort of way, I feel like I might have dodged a bullet by not getting one, as there was a high chance I would have found myself actually loving the thing and becoming an even weirder flavor of nerd, the dead hardware apologist. Then again, years later, I'd find myself at an AT&T store purchasing a Sony Xperia Play for much the same reason with predictable results, so I guess time makes fools of us all. Has there ever been any of these notorious failures or otherwise oddball devices that you found yourself enamored with? Has there ever been a thing made that spoke to you on some deeper level that just never took off or wound up being forgotten or mocked by the wider public? So I was never delusional enough to think that it was going to be like a hit or anything, but I really liked the Tapwave Zodiac, which was a PDA basically that they made some games for. And specifically, it had a really great solitaire, a really great touchscreen solitaire at a time when sometimes you're taking a lot of poops, and having a nice version of solitaire at your fingertips is great. But also, the GBA version of Tony Hawk 2, the cool isometric Tony Hawk thing that was like a pretty amazing version of Tony Hawk in that form, they did a version of that with like much sharper graphics on the Tapwave Zodiac. And it was not ideal because you only had an analog stick. It did not have a D-pad, but you could play Tony Hawk 2 the same as the GBA version. You could play that on a Tapwave Zodiac, and it was really, really neat. There were a handful of other games for that thing, and they were all kind of shit. But that version of Tony Hawk 2 was really good, and the device itself was fine. And it did PDA shit, which I have never found a use in my life for a day planner or any kind of the PDA sort of stuff. It just never really made sense to me. But I don't know, like in terms of like backing devices that never really took off, like I was a huge, huge fan of the T-Mobile Sidekick, which was known as the Danger Hip Top in some other parts of the world. which was the phone that had a flip around keyboard and had built-in AOL Instant Messenger at a time when that was absolutely fucking vital. And I had a Sidekick 1, a Sidekick 2, a Sidekick 3, and there was a fourth one that was like the Sidekick LS or LX or whatever it was. But I had all 4 of the Sidekicks. I was always upgrading my Sidekicks. There were a handful of games on it, but none of them were. It was not really a good game machine. But the Sidekick was really great. I took notes at E3 on a Sidekick. The Sidekick was great. The Sidekick was the reason why I didn't want an iPhone. I went from a Sidekick to the iPhone 4, I guess. Whatever first iPhone I got, but I liked having a keyboard, and so you would flip the screen around and the keyboard was underneath it, and so I would be at like the PlayStation press conference, and at that time that stuff was being live streamed, but there was a lot of delay. And there were hands-on, so you'd be able to play a game and have a little bit more detail that could go into the news story that someone was writing up about the press conference. And so in eras where we weren't streaming the press conference, or we were, because a lot of times in those early days, we would go and we would record the press conference and then get the tape back to the booth so that we could live stream it. Or that so we could turn it around and put it up for download or whatever, right? So it was people racing with the tape back to the booth at E3 to do that work. And so you wanted reports from the people who were there. And so I would go the one year that the Sidekick was out anyway. But I could sit there on AOL Instant Messenger with Tor, who was the news editor at the time, and I could send him information about like, okay, they just announced the PlayStation 3. The controller looks like a fucking boomerang, like and give him these details that he could immediately put up on the website. It was fucking awesome. At a time when people had to do that with laptops and count on Wi-Fi that at the venue was always shit, and so many people were getting on the Wi-Fi that no one could get on the Wi-Fi, for me to be sitting there with my phone just sending these details back real time was really fucking neat. But the only reason I could do that is because it had a physical keyboard on it that I could look up at the screen and stay typing. I could be watching that thing and touch typing the entire time. And so when the iPhone came out and it had no keyboard on it, I was like, well, that doesn't work at all. Like the benefit of having a keyboard was that I could look at something else and still type. And I can't with a touchscreen keyboard, like you just can't do that. And so I was very reluctant for the iPhone, and then until the iPhone had an app store, like who gave a shit, right? Like the first gen iPhone was just like, what's the fucking point? And so yeah, I don't know, man. Like it was very useful. The Sidekick was awesome. I might also say that the Swatch Beat swatches that told Swatch Internet time, I was a big fan. And that hasn't taken off yet. I mean, I think the jury is still out on that. I think there's still a lot of great reasons for Swatch Internet Time to catch on. And, I think it's that stuff is just right around the corner any day now. But it has not happened yet. But I was a big fan. Big fan. Last question. Matt from Lansing writes in. It says, I've noticed lately that Nintendo doesn't seem to be in a hurry to support any streaming services on the Switch 2. The first Switch didn't have robust streaming offerings, but I feel like Crunchyroll and YouTube did relatively well on the platform. My question, do you think the hard-to-police wild world of internet video has scared Nintendo off supporting streaming video for good? If not, what are your thoughts on the matter? So, it's kind of neat to be able to have access to different video streaming services on your game consoles, right? Like Netflix did really well on consoles for a period of time. And, these various apps have done okay even on Nintendo platforms at various times. The other thing that happens is like there was a period of time where I believe it was the 3DS, the YouTube app for the 3DS you could use as a vector to attack the system and eventually get yourself to some kind of jailbreak or eventually custom firmware. And so I have always viewed their reluctance to fully embrace a lot of those types of apps as part of their, like, they don't want to have a web browser on it anymore either. Because the minute you can put a web browser on it, it opens it up to so many more different potential exploits and everything else. And so, like, browser exploits and and the fucked up thing is, I mean, it's not fucked up, it's kind of awesome, but technically, you kind of need to support a web browser on your console, even if you don't let users open it up and look at any web page on it. You still need to technically have some web browser support, because they might be logging into a Wi-Fi network that has a captive portal set up. And so those are like when you go to, like, and it doesn't happen as much anymore, but like you would log on to Wi-Fi at like a public spot, and it would pop open your web browser and go like, you need to check this box and say you're not going to steal shit, or whatever. You have to agree to something, or maybe even pay them money or whatever. You're at a hotel and you got to type in your name and room number before it will let you on the Wi-Fi. And so those are all technically web browsers. And so the minute that stuff is in there, it's very easy to then say, okay, well, I'm going to I've got a router here. I'm going to just redirect DNS so that instead of opening up whatever captive portal page, it's going to pop a different page and redirect somewhere else. And now we just have a web browser. And now I'm reading Archive of Our Own on a Switch 2, or, whatever, right? Like there's whatever you want to get up to, right? You wouldn't just use it to casually browse a website. But it ends up being a situation where, like, whether they like it or not, web browsers end up kind of having to be on a lot of these devices no matter what. And so they have to make sure that they're as locked down as possible to prevent people from doing weird shit. But a lot of those streaming apps, I think, ended up being the same deal of like, okay, we're going to use the YouTube app and it's going to redirect here and do this. And, there's kind of weird situations like that can arise. And so I think Nintendo, more so than everyone else, has been very, like a little cold to some of that stuff. And I imagine that is part of the reason why, probably not the whole reason, but I imagine that that's at least some part of it. Anyway, that's going to do it for the show. Thanks everybody for listening or coming on through live here with us. I'll be back Wednesday to stream some video games and hang out and do something, and bonus podcasts and all that stuff. And then on Friday, we will rank some 8-bit Nintendo games. And yeah, it was a landmark week for NES games last week. We played Harlem Globetrotters for the NES, and a truly dreadful game. I played some of the DOS version of that game, and I think the DOS version of the game might actually be slightly better. Slightly better. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.